Call with Dan Tortora on wakeupcalldt.com, your one-stop sports shop, and on mixlr.com/wakeupcalldt. Hope you're having yourselves a fantastic morning this morning. We are inside of the Cafe Kubal studios, and we are, of course, here on, like I said, MixLR, as well as Facebook.com/LiveNowDT, where you're watching and listening, and on YouTube.com/wakeupcalldt. So happy to have you here. So thankful to be hanging out with you this Wednesday morning inside of the Cafe Kubal studios. Cafe Kubal located on 3501 James Street, 324 West Water Street, 208 North Townsend Street, 401 South Salina Street. Back inside of Golisano's Children's Hospital with their grand reopening just a couple weeks ago. And also at 343 Fayette Street in Manlius, where I will be tomorrow, live on site, on location, while you're dining in and enjoying your coffee, coming and picking something up, or hanging out for a little bit while you are inside of Cafe Kubal in Manlius tomorrow morning from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern Time. I'll be right upstairs broadcasting the show. So I'll be there right above the cafe as you enjoy your favorite cup of chai, any type of the teas, the coffees, and so much more, as well as the fantastic breakfast sandwiches and all the great stuff that they have to offer for lunch, as well as their little dessert pieces and whatnot. So make sure you find your way to Cafe Kubal today, and I will see you there tomorrow as well at 343 Fayette Street in Manlius, New York. So with that being said, we have a jam-packed broadcast, a wake-up call with Dan Tortora today. You know that Wednesday is the Fantasy Football Power Hour. Well, we always extend it past 11. This time around, we're going to give the Power Hour the entire show. So it's the Power Hours, because there's a lot to unpack about the NFL Draft. So, inside of MonPazPopcorn.com's What's Poppin', bringing you this beautiful show today. The Fantasy Football Power Hour will be the Power Hours, and we'll break down all the different pieces of the first round. Mike and I gave our predictions on where we thought people would go in the first round, all picks 1 through 32. So we're going to be putting that up against the actual draft. So just a little look inside of here. You'll see mine is on the left, Mike is on the right. The picks we had, were they correct? We'll get into those in just a little bit here, up against the actual draft. So we did the mock draft last week in our Florida in Focus series. So from down in Florida, Mike and I did the mock draft together. And you can see, like I said, me on the left, him on the right, showing you who we thought would go where. And we'll put that up against what actually happened in the draft. So I'm very excited to be doing this with you and with Mr. Mike Sofka, as we will be bringing you the mock draft up against the actual draft results. So were we right? What picks were we right on? And if we were wrong on a pick, did we agree with it? Did we think that, it wasn't the same position? Did they just, pick a different player at that position? Did they go totally in a different place than we would have thought the teams would have gone? So that's all going to come up here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, and we'll be able to speak with you about all of it. Are these picks the same? Did they do what they think, that what we thought they were going to do? If they didn't, then what happened? Or did somebody trade up and take the player that we thought would be at that pick and just ended up going to another team? So a lot of stuff to unpack here as we look at the first round of this year's NFL Draft and how Mike and I did in the grand scheme of what we had and what actually happened. So that's all going to be coming up here, where sports truly meets that thing called life, in the Fantasy Football Power Hour, proudly presented by the Wildcat Sports Pub. If you'd like to sign up for fantasy football, the Wildcat Sports Pub gives you the opportunity to do that with us. So you can go to dtstays@gmail.com. That's dtstays@gmail.com. I'm going to put that up again today. We have a bunch of people that have already signed up. We have a lot of people that return every single year, and we do have some spots that are open. So we'll make sure to get you out there and get you signed up and ready to go. We draft on-site, on location at the Wildcat Sports Pub. They do it up really big and nice for us, and so I'm very excited always every year to go back there. This is our 10th anniversary of my Syracuse leagues. So it's the 10th anniversary of my leagues here in Central and Upstate New York, which I'm very proud to have. and we will be at the Wildcat Sports Pub. So I'll make sure I get you that information, and then I post that on all of our social media. But if you'd like to join, you got to do it sooner than later, as spots are scarce once we get closer and closer to it. And I want to make sure we got everybody set and ready to go so that they have all the information they need. So, with that being stated, we'll take a step aside for a fast break here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. When we spin back around, we will be freshly inside of the Fantasy Football Power Hour, proudly presented by the Wildcat Sports Pub, as we discuss with you everything that happened in the first round of the NFL Draft. We're going to be going through the draft the next few weeks because, listen, there's 7 rounds, so you can't possibly do it all in one show. And, I want to make sure we take the time. I want to take the time to take the time. I'm sure we could do it all in one show, but I want to really look through this, see what we got, and, unpack this draft and spend our due diligence and our time on the teams that are out there. So that's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to take a step aside and come back with the Fantasy Football Power Hour right here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, where sports truly meets that thing called life. We appreciate you being here as always. Inside of the Cafe Kubal Studios, Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, having some fun with you this morning, and we thank you so much for just showing up.
Carvel DeWitt, it's what happy tastes like. Do you know why? Because we make ice cream. Creamy, rich, flavorful ice cream. Not yogurt or iced milk like some of our competitors. Ice cream. Fresh, by hand, daily. For the calorie conscious, we have something new for you. Our new Carvelite. Same great flavor, creaminess, and texture of our regular ice cream with only 35 calories an ounce. So whether you want an ice cream cake, flying saucer, dasher, Carvalanche, hard or soft ice cream, we will satisfy your craving with our fresh, handmade regular or new Carvelite ice cream. Carvel DeWitt. It's what happy tastes like.
Cafe Kubal offers same-day local delivery of our products, offering no delivery charge for Onondaga County. Shop cafekubal.com for fresh roasted coffee beans, cold brew, travel mugs, and all your essential Cafe Kubal needs. Cafe Kubal, coffee for the soul.
The Wildcat Sports Pub in Camillus, New York is located on 3680 Milton Avenue in the Home Depot Plaza. It is your family-friendly sports bar and restaurant. Folks, some sports bars aren't family-friendly. Some family-friendly restaurants are not sports bars. The Wildcat Sports Pub in Camillus, New York is proud to be both. It is that marriage that you've been looking for years. The Wildcat Sports Pub is your home base for your sports bar and restaurant needs, games for the kids, indoor and outdoor activities, and enough things on the menu to come back every single week and get to try something new. They're open Sundays from noon to 8 p.m., Monday through Wednesday, 11 a.m. to 11 p.m., and Thursday through Saturday from 11 a.m. to midnight. For reservations and party information, call 315-487-2222 for the Wildcat family-friendly sports pub and restaurant. Welcome back here to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora on wakeupcalldt.com, your one-stop sports shop, and on mixlr.com/wakeupcalldt, as well as on Facebook Live on facebook.com/livenowdt, and on youtube.com/wakeupcalldt, all inside the Cafe Kubal Studios. I hope you're having yourselves a tremendous morning this morning and enjoying life to its absolute fullest. Like I said, the NFL Draft is the conversation of today's show. How the draft went, where the draft went, and I'm very excited to discuss this with you. You know, Mike and I gave our first round choices and what we thought would happen. It's the first time we have ever done a mock draft for an entire round. And so very cool to do something like this and to put it up there on the board to let you see it. We drafted in real time, so if you missed the video, I will share it again to Facebook. It's also on youtube.com/wakeupcalldt, and I can put it on Twitter at CallDT, and you could check it out there and see what we had. So definitely take some time with that and check that out today. A lot of fun stuff, a lot of great stuff going on with all of that. So would love for you to check it out and, see what you think, see how we did, because we did really try to break it down and find the people that we thought would fit with the teams that we thought would make sense with. So, it was a lot of fun to do. Loved doing it. And truly is something very unique that we got to do it all in one. So definitely check it out. And I want to make sure we take the time here. So
I want to take the time to take the time. I'm sure we could do it all in one show.
Mike is going to be joining us in just a little bit.
It was a lot of fun to do. Love doing it.
Eastern
and
time. So
truly
excited
is something
to have
very
him
unique that we got to do here on the show.
And to have him join us very, very soon.
So let me know what you think.
Great to have Mike on
having
there. But
some
like
fun.
I said, we are going to be
Mike is
giving you essentially
a little bit
what
around
we have,
9:25
as far as
so
how did the picks
to
go
have him here
versus what we thought was going to happen. So we did the mock draft last week, the day before the first round happened. On that Wednesday, before the first round happened on Thursday, we brought you what we thought would go down in the draft. And now today, we have the opportunity to show you, where were we right and where was it different? Where did they go somewhere else comparative to where we thought that they would go? So I'm very much looking forward to bringing that to you, and Mike will be joining me to do exactly that in just a little while. You can also watch this video on the homepage of wakeupcalldt.com as well, just so you know. So it's actually located all over the place. So you can go to wakeupcalldt.com to watch the video now. You can go to youtube.com/wakeupcalldt. You could be here on facebook.com/livenowdt, or you could be listening worldwide on mixlr.com/wakeupcalldt. So a lot of different ways to connect with the show, and I appreciate you all for all you do and for connecting with us here where sports meets life on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, as we bring you the show every Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern Time. And appreciate all the guests that have been on and everybody that's listened and been a part of the show. It really does mean a lot and goes a long way. Greg said, draft is very difficult to predict, that's for sure. Nailed the Clemson quarterback, running back, Jaguars prediction. Thank you, sir. Yeah, that was something that I had. I said that Travis Etienne, I said he should go to the Jets. So in the mock draft that you're going to see today, as we kind of look back at it and take a gander at everything, when you see that, you'll see that I had him essentially going there. I had Travis Etienne going to the Jets, and I said if the Jets are smart enough, they will make this pick. If they're not, and he falls to Jacksonville, then they have to take him. And Jacksonville did exactly that. The Jets traded up, and they decided to, they got the 14th pick. They wanted to get Elijah Vera Tucker, so they traded up 9 picks for that. And when they did that, they skipped on Travis Etienne, and Travis Etienne fell to Jacksonville. So, I said, if that happened, you got to do it. I said I didn't think Urban Meyer could contain himself if they were both going to be able to reunite with each other, Travis Etienne and Trevor Lawrence, speaking of them. And so he didn't. He didn't help himself. He put it together, and it worked. So Mike and I, around 9:25 a.m. Eastern Time, we're going to be putting our picks up against what actually happened. So Mike's mock draft of the first round, my mock draft of the first round will be side by side, and we'll be talking about who was actually picked at that spot. So were we right? Were we wrong? If we didn't have the right player there, did they pick the same position, or did they go totally off kilter? So even some of these predictions that Mike and I had that didn't end up panning out directly, what do we think of the picks? Does it make sense? Was it something that we saw coming? And so we'll talk about all of that in just a little bit, because some of these teams went to places that I get it, but it was different than what I had. And then, some guys got picked a lot higher, which I'm excited for, like a Zaven Collins, who I thought would go toward the end of the first round, and he ended up going very much in the middle of the first round, which I was ecstatic about. So there's a lot of good to be had in this draft conversation. I can't wait to have it with you because there's so much to talk about and so much to unpack. So definitely stay tuned to this. There's a lot of great stuff coming up here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, where sports truly meets that thing called life. So beyond that, coming up tomorrow, we're going to be at the Cafe Kubal Studios on location. We will physically be on site, on location, at Cafe Kubal. It's our first ever show that's going to be at the Manlius location, which is the newest location. And that means that you will be finding us at 343 Fayette Street in Manlius, New York. So very, very excited to be able to do that and to bring that to you where sports meets that thing called life. And definitely hope that you'll be tuning in here on Facebook Live on facebook.com/LiveNowDT. I'll be sharing it onto YouTube after the fact. So we'll be directly live on Facebook tomorrow. Normally we're live on Facebook and YouTube and on wakeupcalldt.com. Tomorrow we're going to be live directly on facebook.com/LiveNowDT. And then I will carry that over to YouTube and we will broadcast it live, or we'll rebroadcast the live feed from YouTube later on in the day. So for those of you looking for us on YouTube tomorrow, we will not be on YouTube from 9 to 11. We'll be on YouTube after, as we're going to broadcast live on Facebook from Cafe Kubal in Manlius, and then we'll extend it out to YouTube. So make sure you don't miss out on that. I don't want anybody to miss the show or wonder where we are tomorrow morning. So just giving you a little heads up on how it's going to go down for tomorrow's broadcast of Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. So appreciate you being here. Thankful that you're here and hope that you're having yourselves a fantastic day today and making the most of the day. I know that it's been rainy and there's been a lot of stuff going on, but you know, you got to stay positive, got to stay good, got to stay in it and have some fun with it. So stay positive out there, folks, and I hope that you're having yourselves a good day and staying safe and making the most of the time that you have, because that's all you can do, right? Is value the time you got and do good things with the time that you have. So I hope that you're doing exactly that and that the week's going well for you. If it's not going that well, I hope it gets better. You know, I hope that things always pan out for the best, and I give you nothing but my hopes and positivity moving forward as we step closer and closer, hopefully, to realizing your dreams or continuing those dreams, as I'm always praying and hoping the best for every single one of you out there here with life, you know, and how things go. So a lot of great stuff coming up this week. Can't wait to be at Cafe Kubal. As you know, we're always inside of the Cafe Kubal studios, and once a month we get to go on site, on location to Cafe Kubal, which I'm very, very excited to get to do. So I definitely look forward to being able to have that time with you, and I appreciate you so much for hanging out with us here and having some fun on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, where sports truly meets that thing called life. Greg's saying a lot of college quarterbacks and wide receiver teammate reunions. Yes, you know, there's definitely some good stuff that's happening here in the NFL with people that know that know each other. They're a friend from work, but that there's this connection that is being reinstated in the NFL that they had in college, like Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow, Travis Etienne, and Trevor Lawrence. So it's good to see, you know, these things happening and these players finding their way back to one another. You know, Jalen Hurts, who used to be at Alabama, and now Devontae Smith is with the Eagles, and Jalen Hurts is the Eagles quarterback. Hard to believe, but no offense to Jalen Hurts, I just didn't think. I mean, teams getting rid of their quarterbacks quicker than I anticipate. Sam Darnold, Jared Goff, Carson Wentz. I mean, look at it. Jared Goff was the number one pick, right? And Jared Goff, number one pick. The number two pick was Carson Wentz. And they're both on different teams now. And then not only that, I mean, it's crazy to see this. I'm going back and looking at the draft 2016. Jared Goff was 1, Carson Wentz was 2. They're both on a different team already. Jalen Ramsey was 5. He's on a different team. You know, it's things change Corey Coleman's been on like 50 different teams. He was the 15th pick. Will Fuller's on a different team. He was the 21st pick. So it's just, it's crazy to see how things shake out. And I think with quarterbacks, people, I feel like teams have been much more apt to let them go quicker. And I mean, look at Mitch Trubisky and the downfall of everything with Chicago. He was the number 2 pick in 2017. Leonard Fournette in 2017 was the number 4 pick. He's not on the same team anymore. No longer on Jacksonville, obviously. John Ross was the number 9th pick, wide receiver to Cincinnati. He's not there. Pat Mahomes was 10th, right? Drafted before Pat Mahomes. Myles Garrett, Mitch Trubisky drafted before Pat Mahomes. We look back on this stuff. Deshaun Watson was drafted 12th. And it's funny how hindsight's 20/20, and what do we say? I can't believe that this guy was drafted after da-da-da, but you don't know what they're going to turn out to be. You really don't. You roll the dice. Baker Mayfield was the number 1 pick in 2018. And Cleveland's been okay. The number 3 pick in 2018, Sam Darnold, not on the same team anymore. Josh Allen was the number 7 pick. Josh Rosen was the number 10 pick. And he's bounced around. Josh Rosen might be done in the NFL. And I just pray blessings to him that, I hope everything works out for him and his dreams and his aspirations. Because it's crazy to see how things happen. But yeah, I mean, these drafts can look a certain way and then spin. And they have. And they've changed. We look at last year, Joe Burrow was taken 1. Tua Tagovailoa was taken 5th overall. So a couple quarterbacks off the board early. And this year, we saw the top 3 picks be quarterbacks. And they were exactly what I had predicted. So a lot coming up here in this draft conversation. I can't wait to speak with you about it. Mike Sofka are going to be joining us in just a second. We'll take a step aside for a fast break on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora from inside of the Cafe Kubal studios. Last week you saw our mock draft happen in real time. We selected our players 1 through 32 of the first round. All 32 picks of the first round. I didn't know Mike's picks. He didn't know mine. We drafted in real time, and you could go back and watch that video. And like I said, I'll share it again today on our social media and on our website on wakeupcalldt.com. But you got to see in real time who we picked. Now you get to see our picks up against what actually happened right after this fast break on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, where sports meets life inside of the Cafe Kubal studios, and of course, right here with you inside of the Fantasy Football Power Hour.
Avicoli's Restaurant, located right at the corner of Route 57 and Wetzel Road, is proud to be your local neighbor, growing with you for over 20 years. We're open 7 days a week for lunch, dinner, and drinks. For takeout, delivery, or catering, call us at 315-622-5100. When you order online and use our promo code AVS10, you will save 10% on your online purchase at myavicolis.com. And make sure to join us monthly for our live on-site broadcasts centered around Liverpool athletics. Avicoli's, your local, trusted neighbor right at the corner of Route 57 and Wetzel Road.
Having peace of mind when you're out of town that your furry-loving friend is safe and sound means taking them to Canine Campground, because we all know that when it comes to the love of our pets, it goes well beyond the call of duty to make sure they're safe and sound. Right, Lily? So take a ride to 242 Johnson Street in East Syracuse, New York, and see Canine Campground and where your dog will be staying, in the classic cabin, the executive cabin, the grand cabin, or of course the luxury cabin, because if you know Lily, you know she loves luxury. Now you don't have to wait to the last minute to find a family member or a friend that'll take your dog for a few days. Call Canine Campground at 315-299-4013. That's 315-299-4013. Their drop-off and pickup times are Monday through Sunday. Check K9campground.com for more information. That's the letter K, the number 9, and campground spelled with a K.com. K9campground.com.
When you're going out of town, bring your dog to K9 Campground.
Welcome back here to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora on wakeupcalldt.com, your one-stop sports shop, and on mixlr.com/wakeupcall. DT hanging out with you inside of the Cafe Kubal studios. Cafe Kubal with locations on 3501 James Street, 324 West Water Street, 208 North Townsend Street, 401 South Salina Street. Back inside of Galisanos Children's Hospital with their reopening a couple weeks ago inside of the Galisanos Children's Hospital, and I want to thank Galisano for everything that they do to help our kids and try to heal our kids, and I just hope that, God's healing hand is on Galisano and everywhere with children and with adults and with everybody that needs some healing and needs some prayers today. I send my best to each and every single one of you, truly. So, with that being said, thank you for that, and happy to see Cafe Kubal back there because, a little bit of coffee, a tea, a little snack. Those people are working tirelessly all day long, so you have no idea what a cup of coffee might mean to them, or maybe you do. So, little things like that put a little smile on our faces, on a rainy day like today in central and upstate New York, going to get myself a chai tea and a snack from Cafe Kubal goes a long way. Because you treat yourself, you do something nice and, take the time, so to speak. So, and some of us need that morning coffee. I function with my internal caffeine that I always have, but some people need that. Actually, a lot of people say they need that coffee, and I totally get it. So, make sure you head out to Cafe Kubal today. And, of course, their location on 343 Fayette Street in Manlius. We will be there tomorrow, broadcasting the show live upstairs above the cafe, and I'm excited to do that with Mr. Rob Drummond, a Syracuse CFL and NFL alum. So very much looking forward to that. And with that being stated, on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, where sports truly meets that thing called life, we have Mr. Mike Sofka coming up here with us in just a second. And Mike and I are going to be breaking down our picks up against what actually happened inside of the Fantasy Football Power Hour, proudly presented by the Wildcat Sports Pub. So let's bring the man in. Mr. Sofka, how are we doing?
Awesome, Dan. How are you?
I'm doing well. And Mike, obviously the draft goes on. It happens. I had the luxury of being down in the great state of Florida when it went down. And obviously you were too. And seeing the Jacksonville Jaguars with the first pick in this year's draft, what did that mean to you? It was kind of interesting, the first round of the draft that we did the mock draft for, the bookends of the first pick being a Florida pick, the last pick being a Florida pick, with Jacksonville being the worst team in the NFL and Tampa being the best. What did you think about that, being a Floridian, what it was like to see, bookends of the state of Florida in this draft?
Well, it just goes to show you, that's what Florida, Texas, California, all those traditional schools, and I know not just because you go to school in that state doesn't mean you're from that state anymore, especially with those big programs, but I think there's a tremendous advantage to college and high school athletes coming out when they're from an area of the country where they can play ball or train year-round with ease. So, I'm not surprised at the way things went. I'm glad Jacksonville didn't mess up the first pick and try to get cute or do anything different. And I'm glad that Tampa Bay got an edge rusher that they're going to desperately need here soon. So I think it was a good draft overall, up and down. I think Jacksonville getting Travis Etienne toward the end of the first round was huge. Not a move that I saw coming, but it kind of makes sense, especially with Urban Meyer's comments about Etienne. But we'll get to that later.
Yeah, in seeing this, and that was something that I actually said in our mock draft, is I had Travis Etienne. I said he should go to the Jets, but that's if the Jets are smart enough to take him. They ended up trading up to get an offensive lineman, which I don't disagree with that move that they made. But with doing that, they left it wide open for the Jacksonville Jaguars to take Travis Etienne and return him to his quarterback, about 5 seconds after they stopped playing together. So they didn't have to go a game without each other because they played at Clemson, went into the draft, and now they're playing in the NFL in Jacksonville together. So, I definitely said if he's still on the board, I don't think Urban Meyer can help himself, and he's going to take him if he's still there, and it's exactly what he did. So, with that being said, Mike and I once again, we did our mock draft with you last week going into the draft. On the eve of the draft, we brought to you our mock draft and gave you our picks for the entire first round. It's an unprecedented thing that Mike and I did here on the show. We drafted in real time, and like I said, I'll share that video again so you can go back and watch it. And here is our conversation today inside of the Fantasy Football Power Hour, proudly presented by the Wildcat Sports Pub, where Mike and I get to discuss what we think about our mock draft going up against the actual draft itself. So, Mike, we have your picks here on the right, and mine are on the left. So we're going to put these up here, and people can see them now on Facebook as well as on YouTube and on wakeupcalldt.com. So I'm going to just kind of let you go with it here and give me your thoughts. I mean, obviously, you talked about it a little bit a second ago, but the Jacksonville Jaguars with the first pick of the draft went with who we both chose in Trevor Lawrence. Thoughts on the first pick and the fact that Jacksonville stayed true to what we were hoping they would do?
Well, if you look at Urban Meyer's career, he seemed to always arrive at about the same time a great quarterback has arrived, and that's wherever he's been. Now, sometimes he's manufactured that, made that happen himself, and other times it's just a coincidence, and that's what's drawn him like a moth to a light, if you would. And that's, you look at Florida, he had Tebow come in. You look, he had Alex Smith in Utah. You had Justin Fields and some other guys. I won't name them all at Ohio State, but what I'm trying to say is, good attracts good in this league, and guys who see something in players. Everybody saw something in Trevor Lawrence, but the fact that they vetted him so thoroughly and the fact that they didn't try to get cute with the pick was everything. So I think it was a no-brainer. I think it's good for the organization. It's good for Urban Meyer. It's good for Trevor Lawrence. So it should be good for the fans of Jacksonville as well.
Yeah, we both went with that in our mock draft, and it was exactly on par with the Jacksonville Jaguars and who they ended up going with. So Trevor Lawrence, first pick overall off of this. And just to take a quick look at how things actually shook out with Trevor Lawrence while he was at Clemson. If you take a look at Trevor Lawrence's stats at Clemson, so looking at things here, 3,280 yards in 2018 and 30 touchdowns to 4 interceptions. 2019, 3,665 yards with 36 touchdowns to 8 interceptions. And last season of 2020, 24 touchdowns to 5 interceptions, 3,153 yards. So over 3,000 yards in each season, single-digit interceptions in each season, at least 20-plus touchdowns in 2 seasons of 30 or more touchdowns for this quarterback who rarely ever lost. And that was another thing to really look to, in his time in Clemson. We look at the records. In 2018, they were 15-0 and national champions. In 2019, they were 14-1, finished second in the nation. And in 2020, they were 10-2. So he only lost 3 games in 3 years and has a phenomenal record coming out of high school where he lost minimal games as well. I think it's something ridiculous, like he's lost 4 or 5 games in 7 years. So here he comes to Jacksonville, and we both had him going in the first pick in our mock draft, and the NFL, the draft obviously went in that direction. The Jaguars obliged us there. Mike, you and I both picked Zach Wilson in our mock draft to go to the Jets at number 2, the quarterback out of BYU, and that's exactly what happened. What do you think about that?
Well, I'm not sure if he's exactly the number 2 quarterback that should have been taken, but he did have that meteoric ascension when he put together a great year, much like Joe Burrows did, leading his team to a national championship. BYU looked great. If you remember last year, BYU had that pickup game against UCF toward the end. They were like well, okay, we're available. You're saying you'll play anybody. We're saying we'll play anybody. We'll play each other. So it just comes to show you the type of athlete that he is, how competitive he is. He had a tremendous year. So why not take somebody who's on their way up, a young guy who's got talent. He's in that pool of top quarterbacks available from college. And, well, he's proven a winner, and he's led his team. So why not take a chance on a guy like that if you're the Jets? Hey, they've made a lot worse decisions in the past.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I mean, it was still within his rookie contract. They let Sam Darnold go. I was talking about it at the beginning of the show. Letting a guy go that was the 3rd overall pick while he's still within his rookie contract. And the fact that Jared Goff of 2016, the number 1 pick, the number 2 pick, Carson Wentz of 2016, all these guys on different teams. And typically you see a team lean more on their quarterback longer, I would say, give them more time. But seeing these guys go so quickly, Mike, are you surprised that teams are moving on from the quarterbacks they're choosing in the top 3, top 5, top 10 picks? Is it surprising to you that over these last, 4 seasons, really, that we've seen such a mix-up with Jared Goff, with Carson Wentz, and now Sam Darnold all being on different teams?
Well, if it didn't work out, it didn't work out. But what we got to remember, and we see a lot of these quarterbacks going way early lately, but half these guys aren't going to work out. That's just the math behind it. 50% of them are not going to work out. So, you just hope you're on the right side. And, it's a impatient fan base. The game is impatient. The money is impatient. And that's what it's really all about. This is a business. So if you do make a mistake or what's perceived to be a mistake, or if you feel you set yourself back a couple years and you have the ability to shorten that negative window, that's why these teams have done that and moved on. They're obviously like, look, we've seen enough of this. This isn't working. We're going to move in a different direction if we can. We've got a high draft pick again. We shouldn't have a high draft pick because we got this great quarterback a couple years ago. Usually the teams that have the high draft picks are the worst teams. I argue to say that Jacksonville is not far from being a playoff team, that the Niners, there's so many that we can go on down the line who were that one quarterback away from making things happen. So, yeah, I get the frustration, but if you mess up a high draft pick, a top 5, top 10 draft pick on a quarterback, and you miss, you set your whole club, you set your whole franchise back as much as 7-8 years minimum.
And that's the thing is you gotta really you gotta strike, and some of this is taking a chance. Some of this is having just belief that the player is going to pan out. Some of it is, you got to do your homework. It's not just talent. Jacksonville knows that with Jalen Ramsey and company. It's not just talent. It has to be more than that. You have to know to the best of your ability what you're getting. You got to ask the right question. It's like anything. It's like dating. It's like finding a job in general. You have to ask the right questions. And sometimes things don't work out. Sometimes people lie. Sometimes people come in hot and then they, don't always get after it after that. They come in with the energy and then they lose the energy or they get rid of it. So you don't know exactly what you're going to get at any given time. It's a lot of faith. It's a lot of trust. It's a lot of homework. And hopefully Zach Wilson will pan out and they won't make him yet another scapegoat. As Mark Sanchez, they took all of Mark Sanchez's weapons away, including his favorite target, which was tight end Dustin Keller, and then they blamed him for everything. And people forget he made it to back-to-back AFC championship games. And then outside of that, when they went to Sam Darnold, they took all the talent away from him, and he continued to not do well. Quincy Enunwa and Robbie Anderson, 2 receivers that he started to, in my opinion, build a connection with. They let them both go somewhere else. And beyond that, they didn't bring in any. Le'Veon Bell was a head case in Pittsburgh. They didn't have anybody else at running back. They weren't helping him at wide receiver. They weren't helping him at tight end. They weren't helping him by protecting him. And then they blame him and ship him off and let him go. And that's been the Jets' MO. They blame the quarterback when it's everything else going on. The front office, the offensive line, the skill players. They blame it all on the quarterback. They let him go. Here's to me hoping that Zach Wilson is not the newest scapegoat of the Jets, but that the Jets actually take care of him like they didn't take care of Mark Sanchez and Sam Darnold. Now, you said that the meteoric rise of Zach Wilson. In 2018, he had 12 touchdowns and 3 interceptions. 2019, he had 11-9. In 2020, he had 33-3. Just blew up. And he took 199 attempts in 2019. He took 247 in 2020. So nothing crazy. It's not like this guy wasn't, a starter and then all he was, but he played 9 games in 2018, 9 in 2019, and he played 12 in 2020. And in playing those extra 3 games, he boosted his completion percent. How about this? He attempted more passes, and he had 247 completions. That was my fault here. So he attempted 319 to 336 from 2019 to 2020. So in those extra 3 games, he only attempted 17 more passes, yet he had 33 touchdowns and 3 interceptions. So it's not like this man was on the bench, backup quarterback, played 5 games, numbers didn't look good, and then he's the starter and they look great. This guy attempted almost the same amount of passes from 19 to 20, and, looking at those 2 years back to back, his completion percentage rose over 11%. From 62.4 to 73.5, 11.1%. And on top of that, his yardage went 1,300, almost 1,300 more. No, it is 1,310 more. And 22 more touchdowns and 6 less interceptions. This man legitimately took the time he had, the attempts he had, and from one year to the next, just corrected a lot of things and got a lot better. The Jets are arguably getting a person who figured some things out, but now he's got to figure it out in the NFL. It's different, and it's just like going from high school or prep school to college, college to pro. You're looking at the situation of you might be the best guy on your team, you might be the best guy in your league, the best guy in your conference, and now you got to play in the NFL. And best guy in prep school, best guy in high school, best guy by far in the state. Now you got to be on a team where everybody was the best guy in their state. So it'll be interesting to see how Zach Wilson pans out. But as we'll talk about in just a little bit, they did work to protect him, and his numbers don't lie. And again, he played in 3 more games, but his attempts were almost exactly the same, and he just did better completing the ball, getting it in the end zone, and minimizing his mistakes. He did more with almost the same amount, which is, that's everything you can ask for a guy to literally just do better in the same situation. So, and he was actually without some of his skill guys. He was out without his tight end, I believe, too, because he had opted out. So a very interesting kind of look at Zach Wilson, and I'm hoping the best for him. The third pick, Mr. Sofka, that we had in our prediction, you went with Mac Jones to San Francisco, who traded up from 12 to 3 prior to draft night. I went with Trey Lance. It ended up being Trey Lance. My argument was, I don't think San Francisco makes that big of a jump from 12 to 3 if they're not going to make a splash. And how better to, how you make a splash by going big or, that high risk, high reward. So going from 12 to 3, I had him taking Trey Lance because I really thought that they were going to do that, put themselves in a position of if they're going to trade up that high, 9 picks, then that means that they're going to take a big, big chance. And that's exactly what they did with Trey Lance. What are your thoughts on it? You had Mac Jones. What do you think about the Trey Lance pick?
Well, either way. It can go either way with this, and they went with Trey Lance, and that just means that they're confident that Jimmy Garoppolo is going to stick around, and they're confident that they can start Jimmy Garoppolo. Look at the advantage that a lot of quarterbacks have by sitting. You look at Aaron Rodgers sitting behind Brett Favre. Now, I know Garoppolo is not Brett Favre, but what I'm trying to say is even Trey Lance did the same thing at North Dakota State. He came in and sat a year behind Easton Stick. So the guys that get that opportunity to slowly progress in without having to jump full on into the pool, they can just stick their toe in the water and gradually enter. Those guys do well. But then sometimes it works out to your benefit to throw the guy, right into the pool. Baptism by fire. This is what some guys need. So, we're only an injury away from a quarterback on another team without seeing Trey Lance as the starter. What I mean by that is I think Jimmy Garoppolo could be shopped still, but I think the plan is, and according to what Jimmy Garoppolo is saying, for, those guys to all stay together at least one more year here, and hopefully this will make Jimmy Garoppolo the better player in the long run. for it. Now, I don't mean better player as compared to Trey Lance, because I think Trey Lance has all the talents and tools and football IQ to be a superstar in the league. But it's like we said before, half the guys don't work out. So it is what it is there. Hopefully it does work out for Trey Lance. Hopefully he does get that time to sit, because he's rather young. He's had 17 starts, counting the fact that he sat that 1 year, but you'd have to go back to high school to find a game where he lost as a starting quarterback. So, that bodes well for you as well. You're not a loser. You're not you, etc. So, hopefully this will work out for both quarterbacks, Trey Lance and Jimmy Garoppolo.
Yeah, it's definitely taking a chance. We saw with Dwayne Haskins Jr., and obviously they're not the same people. It's just, the question mark of taking somebody who had really one season, and it didn't work out with Haskins. But again, you can't treat your new girlfriend a certain way because of what your old girlfriend did. And it's the same thing here with Trey Lance. He don't know that man. He probably doesn't know Dwayne Haskins, and to be put in the position of being compared to him, they're different people. They're different human beings. Now, the taking a chance on a guy who only had one season as a starter, I can understand the concern there that the fan base may have. We look at the season that he, as a sophomore at North Dakota State, Trey Lance, 192 completions on 287 attempts, 66.9% completion percentage, 2,786 yards, 28 touchdowns, no interceptions. Now, people might say, well, Dan, he's playing in North Dakota State, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, okay, well, this is also a team that vies for a national championship. So I like, and a lot of talent has come out of North Dakota, these teams that they have had and the players that they've had at quarterback. So I like Trey Lance. I like the upside. I like the hope in him. We watched some film on him and talked about him a little bit well before the draft happened. So I'm pleasantly looking forward to seeing what he can do. But again, like Mike said, this kind of puts you in a position where you got some time with Jimmy Garoppolo, unless they look to ship him off. And if they do, and it's really Trey Lance or bust, because remember, they've had a couple guys, get them out of trouble in Nick Mullins and C.J. Beathard, and C.J. Beathard went over to Jacksonville. So they might go boom or bust with Trey Lance this season. And right now they go with him, and that's the pick that I had because I thought they would strike in that way. Mike, at number 4, I had Devontae Smith. You had Kyle Pitts. We both went receiving core on this pick. You got it right with Kyle Pitts. What are your thoughts on Mr. Pitts being, he's marked as a tight end, but being the first receiver of tight end or wide receiver, the first receiving core guy off the board? What do you think?
Yeah, I challenge anyone to put together some sort of poll and ask any NFL GM, ask any NFL coach, even the ones that picked quarterbacks ahead of the number 4 pick here, that's San Fran, the Jets, and the Jaguars. I think every one of them would have picked Kyle Pitts with their first pick had he been available. I think he's the biggest no-brain pick in the draft. Freakishly athletic, extremely long arms, giant wingspan, can catch the ball from just about anywhere. He is like a receiver at the tight end position, but he's huge. He's big-bodied. So this is a guy that's going to command double coverage from day one. Or he's going to burn you, and he's going to make you look silly. And, Atlanta's tried. Atlanta had Austin Hooper. They did real well. Contract came up. They decided to go another direction. They brought in Hayden Hurst. That's a guy who underwhelmed, in my opinion, with the Ravens. Luckily the Ravens did the smart thing, like I try to do sometimes. You go to the well. Don't just drink water for your sip that you need now. Take some with you because you had to stand in line. Well, that's what the Ravens did a couple years ago by taking Mark Andrews and Hayden Hurst. And, Mark Andrews worked out. They sent Hayden Hurst packing. And now Hayden Hurst didn't, quite work out the way they thought he should have in Atlanta. Now, maybe this will increase Hayden Hurst's game because the 2 tight end set is something that a lot of teams covet. You look at Philadelphia has been trying to do it. I go back to the Patriots when they were able to do it successfully back in the day with Gronk and the other guy that shall remain nameless. One I'm trying to say is everybody can use a dynamic tight end like Kyle Pitts. Atlanta was in a position to take him, and I argue that if Atlanta was at number one for some reason, they still may have taken Kyle Pitts instead of a quarterback.
Yeah, and Kyle Pitts, he brings some fire, and he brings it immediately. The funny thing about it is you think it'll help Hayden Hurst because he'll probably be open, but he's been so underwhelming that even if he is out there available, is he going to do what he needs to do in the field? So that's kind of the question. My hope is that things work out for Hayden Hurst and Kyle Pitts, but I think the pick is tremendous. You had him here. I could definitely see the argument of doing it. I kind of wanted to see him go to Miami and stay in the state of Florida, and so, but I'm not surprised at all that Atlanta did this. It's smart. It's good. They do need a future quarterback, but right now you got Kyle coming onto the team. They've had Julio Jones. They've had some moments with Calvin Ridley. Now they have Kyle Pitts. So there's nothing wrong with what they did here at this pick by any stretch of the imagination. Mike, the next pick, the 5th overall, ended up going to, Jamar Chase, the wide receiver out of LSU. I said when we did our mock draft, I don't think Cincinnati can help themselves. They have Joe Burrow from LSU and that championship team. They just brought in Thaddeus Moss as just an easy move over guy who wasn't drafted. So they bring in Randy Moss's son at tight end to reunite with Joe Burrow. And I said, if Jamar Chase is there, they're going to take him. Now, your argument of an offensive lineman, I understood because you got to protect Joe Burrow, but I just didn't think they could help themselves. And reuniting him with one of his receivers just seemed to make sense because, having some SEC in the NFL on a team like that. I mean, you look at Jacksonville with the Clemson guys, and now we look at Cincinnati with, LSU in the NFL, essentially, with Thaddeus Moss, Jamar Chase, and Joe Burrow. What do you think about the pick at number 5, where it truly was true that the Bengals just couldn't help themselves from having their quarterback get one of his weapons from college?
That's a decision they're going to have to live with, good or bad. I don't think they could have gone wrong either direction. Jamar Chase, obviously capable of stepping in, being a number one right away from the same cloth as Odell Beckham, Jarvis Landry, and some of the other stud receivers that have come out of LSU. But you look at the receivers that Cincinnati does have, any one of these guys, Chase, Boyd, or Higgins, could be considered a number one on a team. I know that all three of these guys are relatively young. That's a great thing. You got a young quarterback. Maybe they can lure some free agents, or maybe there'll be some moves and some guys get cut that they can ink on to come in and bolster that offensive line a little more. I'm of the school of thought that when you got a guy like Joe Burrow that you took number one overall, you got to do what you got to do to make him better. And obviously they believe that the receiver position, bringing Jamar Chase in, another former teammate, is the way to go. And I can't argue. I think Jamar Chase was hands down the best wide receiver in the draft. It was close, but I think he was the best wide receiver in the draft, and this is going to help everybody. That's what you want to do. You want to make sure you help your team when you have a high draft pick, and maybe they just felt that there was more value later on in the offense. It's going to be interesting to see how this all shakes out, but hey, this is why we do what we do. This is why they do what they do, and I'm excited for Jamar Chase, and I'm excited for the Bengals and Joe Burrow. I think it's going to be great.
Yeah, and it's great to see something like this happen. I think it's electrifying. It's going to get Joe Burrow excited. And, Mike, at least it shows that one franchise in the NFL listens to their quarterback. Joe being in the league for a year, and Aaron Rodgers being in the league for about 1,000 years, and allegedly the Packers do not listen to him. 6th pick, Kyle Pitts I had. You had Jamar Chase right here. They ended up going with wide receiver Jalen Waddle. So we didn't have Jalen Waddle here, but you and I both thought that Miami would go to their receiving core. So, the theme of the pick, we definitely had right. We thought Miami would try and get a weapon for Tua Tagovailoa. So what do you think about this one?
Well, I think Jalen Waddle is the best wide receiver from Alabama, even though he wasn't the Heisman Trophy winner. And, Devonta Smith had a great year. It's because Waddle wasn't able to be on the field all year. So I think it's an excellent pick. I think it's a safe pick. I think, Miami did themselves some justice here, because you look at Miami now. Now they look like they have some weapons. Now it looks like they're starting to head in the right direction. Yeah, Wolf Fuller's had times when he's been injured, and Devontae Parker's doing what he can do anyway. They got Linton Bowden Jr., who I think is yet to scratch the surface. Preston Williams as well. Mike Gesicki's been up and down at the tight end spot, but I think they're trying to do the same thing Cincinnati's doing. Give their quarterback some weapons that he used. If you're going to draft a guy that high, why not put him in a position to be successful? Why would you take an approach where you're like, oh, let's get him and hopefully he'll save everything? That's not the way it works. So they know that, and this is a good move for Miami. They're going to keep moving forward here. Hey, you can't go wrong with taking a guy from Alabama.
No, you can't. And Miami, we like I said, we both thought that they would get a weapon for Tua. They did exactly that. And Tua coming from Bama, Waddle coming from Bama, reuniting these players that came from the same college is pretty special, pretty amazing. 7th pick, Mr. Sofka, you and I had different people here. I had Micah Parsons going to Detroit, thinking that they would bolster up their defense out of Penn State, the linebacker. You had them going with a receiver, Devontae Smith, one of the guys, the guy that won the Heisman, the guy that's, like you said, you thought Jalen Waddle is the best wide receiver out of Alabama. Well, the other guy is Devontae Smith. You had him going 7th. They went with Penei Sewell. Now, even though you and I picked different positions at the 7th pick, and we didn't have Penei Sewell going here, you had him going a little bit earlier. You had him going 5th, and I had him going the pick right after this pick to protect Carolina's quarterback situation, which looks to be Sam Darnold. So what are your thoughts on the fact that with the 7th overall pick, Detroit went Penei Sewell to look to protect Jared Goff, their new quarterback, with Matt Stafford being traded off to the Rams, and the fact that they've had about 115 running backs and haven't been able to really run successfully. So what does Penei Sewell do for Detroit?
Well, I think he shores up the line, gives them an aggressive pass protector as well as a run blocker. But this is a situation where this could be the first pick in this draft where I say, wow, that might have been a mistake. You look at their receiving core here. Yeah, Bashard Perryman, the guy out of UCF, always injured, bounced around from a couple teams. Terrell Williams, same thing, never got his just desserts. Khalif Raymond, who's a guy who I don't think has scratched the surface, but he's been around long enough that he should have. They go back and they get him on St. Brown, Equiminius' brother, later on. So I think we're going to see a changing of the guard at receiver. So in their mind's eye, maybe they feel that St. Brown is a guy that they, could have taken in the first round, but they picked up an offensive lineman as a bonus per se. So I think Penei Sewell is an excellent player. I think he's the best lineman in the draft. I think you can't really go wrong, and it's hard to say this might be a mistake, but looking at the balance of the rest of the team here, that might have been a mistake.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is Detroit having these early picks, again, the nerves of making this pick and making sure that you don't make a mistake and that you don't have a blunder here, because you never know what's going to happen 100%, and, nothing's 100% proof, so to speak.
Well, I want to clarify. I'm not saying Penei Sewell's a mistake. I'm saying versus the other options available on the board long term, Sewell versus Devonta Smith, or Sewell versus, a Jamar Chase or a Waddle or somebody like that. Yeah,
a guy that you think, obviously talented. We both had him as our first offensive lineman off the board. But, in the theme of what you think they need help with right now and what they could advance from, I definitely understand that, bringing in Penei Sewell when they need help defensively and they've gotten rid of their wide receivers. They've let everybody go. They had a 1-2-3 punch. They had a Kenny Galladay, Marvin Jones Jr., Golden Tate punch. They let Golden Tate go. Then they let Marvin Jones go to Jacksonville, and Kenny Galladay is gone. So the question marks at wide receiver for Detroit are vast. You bring in Jared Goff, but what are you doing to help him? So,
one more quick thing.
Yeah.
Quintez Cephas, second-year pro, that's a name to watch out for here in this core, because he could definitely, with what's in front of him and around him, he could definitely make himself into the starting lineup again.
Yeah, and that's the thing is Detroit's kind of in a place where Jacksonville was in recent history, where their wide receiver core was just, why, what are you doing? What are you bringing in? And Blake Bortles, they want to blame him for everything, but he didn't have a great receiving core. And his numbers, if he continued on pace of where he was going with all of his numbers, like a lot of his stuff was similar to Mark Brunell. And Mark Brunell had Keenan McCardell, Jimmy Smith, Kyle Brady, Fred Taylor. None of that was in the world of Blake Bortles. 8th pick overall, Penny Sewell is who I had going to Carolina, offensive lineman that went the pick before. And then you had Justin Fields going to Carolina. Carolina drafts J.C. Horn. Now, here's an interesting story about this. J.C. Horn went to school in the Carolinas, so they're keeping somebody in that area. He went to South Carolina. I know the Panthers play in Charlotte, North Carolina, but J.C. Horn went to South Carolina. He's a corner. A corner that you remember from Carolina Panthers history that was really good, Josh Norman, he went to Coastal Carolina. So just an interesting thought here that you're getting a corner from the Carolinas. JC, what do you think about him going? You and I both had him going in the first round, but him going to Carolina in the top 10, what do you think?
Well, I think that Justin Fields, the reason why I selected him is I thought Carolina needed time to mold a quarterback, yet they needed time to get a guy on the field that could develop. They chose to go the other route, and J.C. Horn was one of the most coveted cornerbacks in the draft, both him and Patrick Surtain II, and both come from a lineage of NFL player. J.C. Horn related, of course, to Joe Horn. I don't think he's going to pull out a cell phone out of his pants when he scores or anything. But why not have a guy that can lock down the field, lock down half the field? You got Dante Jackson or AJ Bowie on the other side, and nowadays you have to have several cornerbacks on your roster because you need a guy that can cover the guy in the slot. Their secondary is bolstered tremendously. Justin Burris is an outstanding player, and Jeremy Chin, this guy can switch between safety and linebacker. So I think they got a lot going on defense. This really makes their defense up and down. Every one of these guys can make it to a Pro Bowl on the defense, the starters. So I think that was a great move on their part. Not sure if that was the right move, but I think it was a great move.
Yeah, I think bringing in and helping out their defense is good. I think they need, more assistance with their offensive line. I think, putting all your eggs in the Sam Darnold basket by letting Teddy Bridgewater go right after you gave him a 3-year contract where the 2 years were set. You let him go already. And here you are with Sam Darnold, who was still in his rookie contract with the Jets. So it's very interesting, the dynamic of Carolina. But J.C. Horn hopefully can help to minimize the quarterbacks on the other side. So if Sam Darnold does make mistakes and continues to see Casper the Friendly Ghost on the field, well, J.C. Horn can help him out by preventing touchdowns on the other side of the ball. Number 9, you would think that John Elway would know quarterbacks. You would think that Denver would having one of the greatest, that he would be able to see it. But in the room with John Elway and everybody else making decisions, I'm not going to put it just on John, the Denver Broncos have been in a position where they've had numerous opportunities to bring in their future quarterback, and it just hasn't worked out. I thought they were going to go Justin Fields at number 9. You thought they were going to go Trey Lance at number 9. They decided to go with Patrick Surtain II right after J.C. Horn left. It's almost like when you're in a fantasy draft, Mike, where you have a plan and it's set in place. Now, maybe this was always their plan. But you have a plan and it's set in place just for argument's sake. And, sometimes you see okay, you're not going to draft a tight end, but you see 3 tight ends go off the board, so you just do it instead of going after the number 1 quarterback or, the wide receiver that you want to get and whatnot because you kind of freak out. Well, as soon as JC went, Surtain goes right after. The question is, did the Broncos go, oh my gosh, they took him, we got to take this guy? I thought they would go quarterback. They did not go quarterback. So they are now in a situation yet again where they have new people in their quarterback room that they're going to have to implement into their offense, which seems like it resets every single year with a new quarterback. What are your thoughts on this pick?
Well, I think that they put themselves in a bad situation. They traded up. They came out and, had to respond to talk about Drew Lock and their confidence behind him and trading up, put themselves obviously in a position to take a quarterback. And with the 8th pick, the top 3 quarterbacks obviously on their board as well were gone. They weren't going to get a chance at Trevor Lawrence. They weren't going to get a chance at Zach Wilson. It came down to Trey Lance. And I bet had Trey Lance been available, had San Fran taken Mac Jones, that I venture to say that Denver would have taken Trey Lance. That was obviously their guy. Yeah, and again, I think J.C. Horn and Patrick Surtain, these guys are almost like flipping a coin. There were some prognosticators had Patrick Surtain lasting a little bit longer into the first round and possibly going to Dallas. But, you got a guy, again, with the lineage. He's been coached. This is what he's been born and bred for, much like a J.C. Horn on the other side. So, hats off to them for identifying what was one of the better players in the draft. They weren't going to take a receiver. They loaded at receiver with Jerry Jeudy and Cortland Sutton and KJ Hamler, and they're okay there. I think that this might have been a very good move. Anytime you can take a lockdown corner, you take them, especially in this day and age where the slot receivers are big-name players as well. So you need every cornerback on the field. See, not every safety can cover like a cornerback, but every cornerback can cover like a safety. So you have to have that flexibility. You have to have that guy that you can say one of two things. You go out and cover that half of the field, or you're a safety and you're going to come up and you're going to stop everything. So they chose to go with a Patrick Surtain, lock down half the field, and I can't really argue with that. I hope that they can remend some fences with Drew Lock. They brought in Teddy Bridgewater, so obviously they felt that it was Trey Lance or bust. Trey Lance didn't come through, and hey, why not lock down half the field?
Yeah, so again, you look at the Carolina situation and you look at the Denver situation, you got some quarterback woes and question marks, but if the defense wins championships, so if you have somebody that's locking down and minimizing opportunities for the other quarterback, well, then if your quarterback makes some mistakes and they're still trying to figure out how to move offensively, it's a lot easier to try and score 10 points or 17 points than it is to score 30. So you're hoping that these corners will help out these quarterbacks by minimizing the points on the other side so that they don't have to do too much as they get acclimated in their new offenses. 10th pick, Mike, is the first trade we saw on draft day. And that was Dallas giving up the 10th pick to Philadelphia. You and I both thought that if Dallas had this pick, they would go corner. I thought they would take Patrick Surtain the second. Now, Denver, as we just spoke about, took him one pick before. So, with that being said, I feel like if he was still available and Dallas was still there, that's where they would go. You had them taking Caleb Farley out of Virginia Tech at corner. The pick was traded to Philadelphia, which could backfire against Dallas because now they have to defend against this guy. Devontae Smith, the other Alabama wide receiver, he goes in the top 10 with his teammate his teammate Jalen Waddle. What do you think about Devontae Smith? First and foremost, what do you think about Dallas trading this pick to a rival inside of the NFC East that could be very well using this pick against them in a very, very soon fashion? Devontae Smith going to Philadelphia. What's your take on the trade and if it could backfire for Dallas?
I thought it was interesting, like you said, within the same division there. But you take a look at Devontae Smith. I mean, this guy just oozes talent. He's a little slight of stature, but I'm not going to argue with his performance. He's a classic number one receiver. He can be your one big guy. You look at the Eagles roster and you're like, well, that's what they took Jalen Reagor for last year. It's why they traded up and took him. And, well, now you got two of those guys, and you can't argue with that success story. Look at a Mike Evans, look at a Chris Godwin. You look at 1-2 punches that are successful across the league. Who are you going to double cover? Both of these guys can run fly routes. Both of these guys run routes real well. They got some unsaid heroes on that team as well at the receiver position. Travis Fulgham, I look for him to have a big year. Greg Ward as well. John Hightower, premium prospect. So they still have guys. They still have some depth there. Obviously, they're solid in their pick from last year, and Jalen Hurts at quarterback. You still had Justin Fields on the board at this point. And I think Dallas trading, maybe the Eagles were the only trading partner they had, and once they saw Surtain was gone, they were like, well, You know, the girl I wanted to dance with ain't here. I'm just gonna go stand over here now. You know, that's the way it was. So, and I feel good for teams that are that solid in their convictions about certain players and about where they need to be and when they need to be and et cetera. So, you know, let's not forget. At the end of the day, this is a business. This isn't fantasy football here. This is how they're going to make money, and they're counting on these first round guys to make them money. You know, as I pointed out before, not all of them are going to work out. Almost half of them aren't. So you got to make sure you're on the right side, and you got to get value. So that's obviously what Dallas thinks they got by moving back. They got value, and I'm not going to argue with Philadelphia taking Devonta Smith. I think it's an excellent pick.
Yeah, you know, and I think it's great because I thought Philadelphia was going to go wide receiver anyways in the first round. So the fact that they were able to pull off Devonta Smith, and I agree with you. I was thinking the same thing about Dallas. Hey, our pick of Patrick Surtain just went, so instead of putting ourselves in a situation where we're scrambling, let's trade down a little bit here. Let's regroup. Let's figure things out because the girl we wanted to dance with isn't available to dance. So I agree with that wholeheartedly and was thinking the exact same thing. So we'll take a step aside for a fast break. When Mike and I come back, we'll be giving our 11 through 21 picks up against what actually happened in the draft, which includes a blockbuster trade that may be on or off the field the best move by the Giants in recent history. We'll talk about it right after this. In these unique times, there are those in our community that give us a sense of normalcy and positivity. Pizza Man on 50 Oswego Street in Baldwinsville has been here for you for over 35 years and is here now. Call 315-638-1234 or order online at pizzamanbeeville.com to bring those familiar tastes into your home. And remember to come see our monthly on-site broadcasts centered around the community and our Baldwinsville beats. Pizza Man in Baldwinsville. Any way you slice it, they are always here for you.
I'm George Townsend of Honda City with some good advice when buying a new car. The true cost of owning a new car is determined by the appraised value when you trade it. No vehicle appraises higher than a Honda. Next, look for low APRs and deep discounts. You also want low maintenance costs and great fuel economy. That's why my advice to you is to buy a new Honda. Looking pre-owned? Visit our Honda Certified Used Car Center. Honda City, 7140 Henry Clay Boulevard, Liverpool, or HondaCity-CNY.com.
It would be a pity if you don't shop at Honda City.
This is Jimmer Sikowski, owner-operator of Chick-fil-A Cicero, 7916 Brewerton Road in Cicero, right in front of the Home Depot. I had a deep feeling that God wanted me to do something bigger with my life and to help people, help others. I kept putting Chick-fil-A in my life, and I realized as I was going through the franchise selection process that positively impacting the lives of others was really core to what we do here at Chick-fil-A. First of all, it starts with the food. The food is brought in fresh daily. We bring in local produce. We prepare to order in the kitchen. We hand bread our chicken. We hand spin our milkshakes. It's great food. It doesn't taste like fast food. I think the second thing is the way people feel when they come in a Chick-fil-A restaurant. It's different. We try to treat people with intentional kindness here, which is very different and deeper than good customer service. And so I think it feels remarkable for most people to come in a Chick-fil-A restaurant. And then lastly, the impact that we try to have in the community is very different. It's a big part of the expectation of every operator of a Chick-fil-A restaurant is that they're actively engaged in their community, they're a leader in the community, and they're making a difference. When they realize that what we're striving to do is to shine a little light in their life, that's a very, very different experience than you will have in any other quick service restaurant. And it's that remarkable experience that I think people will emotionally connect with.
Welcome back here to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora on wakeupcalldt.com, your one-stop sports shop, and on mixlr.com/wakeupcall. DT, as well as on Facebook Live on Facebook.com/LiveNowDT and on YouTube.com/WakeUpCallDT. You're also watching on WakeUpCallDT.com where the feed is embedded. You can watch and listen. The MixLR feed is there to listen to on WakeUpCallDT.com's homepage. Right underneath it is the video that you're currently watching right now. Mike and I putting our mock draft that we did going into this year's draft on the eve of the draft, putting our mock draft picks up against the actual picks of the draft. Well, at pick number 11, we had the Giants. But on draft night, the Giants pulled off a blockbuster deal to some people, and a deal that could really help them pay dividends in the future. They got a fantastic player, mind you, and on top of all of that, bringing in a great player, they also got a bunch of draft stock for the future. The Giants traded back from the 11th pick to number 20, giving the Chicago Bears the number 20 pick. But it gave the Giants giving Chicago the 11th pick. So Chicago gets 11, Giants get 20, but the Giants also get a 2021 fifth-round pick, which they obviously utilized already, a 2022 first-round pick, and a 2022 fourth-round pick. The Giants trading back 9 spots netted them another pick this year and 2 picks next season, including a first-rounder. Mike, you and I, at this, I went Elijah Moore at wide receiver for the Giants. You went Gregory Rousseau, edge rusher, for the Giants. Chicago, I had wide receiver, you had wide receiver. You ironically had Kadarius Toney going to the 20th pick, which ended up being the Giants, so you were right about the pick. But the Bears decided to trade up from 20 to 11 just to get Justin Fields. What do you think about that move, and what do you think about the Giants taking advantage of the fact that Chicago really wanted to get Justin Fields, really wanted to get a quarterback, and they got themselves, speaking of the Giants, an extra pick this year and 2 next year, including a first-rounder. Who won in this thing?
I think Chicago did. I think Chicago may have won the whole draft. That's a gut move on my part because, first-round picks don't grow on trees, and basically you gave up the one you had, and you're giving up next year's as well. The 5th and 3rd, those have yet to be determined. But, first-round picks are highly coveted, so when you trade one away, you're pretty confident in what you're doing. And I think Chicago is that one player away. They got some excellent players at receiver. They've bolstered their defense tremendously in the past several years. I think, maybe they could have used a running back, but we'll see. David Montgomery's been doing them well. They're pretty confident in Andy Dalton for a while there, but when they saw that they had the ability to trade up and get a guy the caliber of Justin Fields, why not? I like Justin Fields a lot. I like him better than, I say, Zach Wilson. I like him almost better than Trey Lance. I say it's a quick coin toss, and obviously better than Mac Jones. But, when we do a mock draft, we're trying to mock up where these guys are going to go, not where we feel they're ranked compared to those other players. So with that in mind, Chicago did what they had to do. The Giants took advantage of that situation. It's a win-win for both involved, and I think Justin Fields is going to be the answer in Chicago.
And hoping that he is. Mitch Trubisky, a guy who, again, seeing these quarterbacks just spend a couple seasons in the NFL and be shipped off already, Chicago kind of toyed with it. Before they drafted Mitch Trubisky, it was like, are they going to do it? Are they not going to do it? What are they going to do? They traded up to, number 2 to get him because they felt like they needed to. So they traded up to get him, and they traded up to get Justin Fields. Now let's see which one works out. I am fine with Chicago doing this. I think Chicago has definitely... they used to be a team that relied on defense, and now they're a team trying to find their franchise quarterback. Remember they made the Super Bowl against the Colts with Rex Grossman, who had a passer rating of 2 when he got into the Super Bowl. So they haven't been known to really have much of anything at quarterback in a very long time. They've tested Nick Foles. They brought in Andy Dalton. Andy Dalton's probably scratching his head going, why the hell did I come here? But, you bring in Andy Dalton, you bring in Nick Foles, you look at, potentially, everything, Mitch Trubisky that they had, and trying to find the guy. You know, they, like Denver, have struck out a lot, and now they're taking a chance on Justin Fields. I want Justin to translate. I don't want him to be another, forgotten player. I'm kind of somewhere in the middle of I'm 51% that he's going to be he's not going to be forgotten, and 49% that he is. So I really don't want that for Justin. I hope that it works out. I think the Giants made a tremendous move here to grab themselves another first rounder next year. You've seen Jacksonville get the double first rounder from the Rams. I love stuff like that where they know they have their pick and then they know they have somebody else's pick. Huge, huge, huge to build for your future. So the Giants very smart in doing this because, again, I thought they were going to take a receiver at this pick, and they ended up taking a receiver at this pick later on. So I love the move by the Giants. I love the draft. Getting more real estate was great for them. And, if Justin Fields works out, then Chicago looks really smart with this pick. Now I'm just hoping that them trading up this time isn't the same as when they traded up last time, in all honesty. Number 12, Mike, we had Philadelphia going with Jalen Waddle. Both of us did. They traded up to number 10 with the Cowboys to get Devontae Smith, his teammate. So you and I thought they would go wide receiver, thought they would go Alabama wide receiver. So even though they traded up a couple picks, we still look like we knew what we were doing here as far as trying to read Philadelphia's mind. We were right there with them that they would go for a wide receiver and that they would go to Alabama to get one. Now, Dallas trading down had the 12th pick, and I think they got a steal here when they drafted Micah Parsons out of Penn State. What are your thoughts about the Dallas Cowboys' decision to go with Micah Parsons, the first linebacker off the board in the draft?
Well, when they saw Patrick Surtain was gone, they were able to move around here and still get one of the best defensive players, if not the best linebacker in the draft here. And this is an important thing for Dallas because if you look at their track record, you look at, we can go back to Sean Lee, great linebacker, had a hard time staying healthy. You look at Leighton Vander Esch, great linebacker, hard time staying healthy. They're going to go immediately to Micah Parsons and hope he stays healthy. Penn State has a certain tendency to churn out some top defensive players, especially linebackers. So I think this is a good fit for Dallas. I think he's arguably the best linebacker in the draft, Micah Parsons. They put him next to Jalen Smith. They still have Randy Gregory. I think that this DeMarcus Lawrence, and this is a defense that is going to make you think twice. You're going to have to look at the players. When you're the quarterback, you're going to have to worry about where that Mike linebacker is. And yeah, it's Tom Brady, and because they're changing uniform numbers, that's going to make it more difficult. Boo-hoo. Micah Parsons is a guy who can rush the quarterback. He can stop the run. He can plug. He can play from the outside. He's going to play middle. He's going to take over Leighton Vander Esch's spot for Dallas. But why not have a tackling machine, a guy that can cover, a guy that can rush, a guy that can do it all? Great move by Dallas.
Yeah, I agree with this. I think this is a fantastic move by the Dallas Cowboys, trading down here to number 12. Which was supposed to be the pick by the Philadelphia Eagles. I think it's a great pick. Listen, Micah Parsons is there. He builds up your defense. Sean Lee's been injured a lot. When he's out, Dallas doesn't play as well. I love it. I love the tenacity. I think he's going to bring something to the defense. I think he's going to bring a spark to them. They have a lot of offensive weapons. They got a lot of wide receivers. They have Ezekiel Elliott. They did right by Dak Prescott. It was time to look to the defense. They did it. And Mike, best available guy, arguably right there, Micah Parsons. So I love the pick by the Dallas Cowboys. I have nothing wrong with it whatsoever. 13th overall pick with the Chargers being on the board. You and I both said that they would take Rashawn Slater, offensive tackle, out of Northwestern, and they did exactly that. So you picked it, I picked it, they picked it. What are your thoughts?
Hey, everybody wins, all right? Hey, hats off to Northwestern, the first of three guys that get taken in the draft. They had two in the first round, the first of the two here. And, it just shows that, quality athletes are out there, even at schools that may not be on the tip of everybody's tongue when it comes to national championships. So, hats off to the schools, for being able to have guys like Rashawn Slater available. First of all, they got to recruit the guy. They got to build and mold the guy, and hats off for the Chargers for recognizing that. They got a great young quarterback there. They have some talent there on offense. So, hey, smart move by the Chargers. I'm glad it worked out.
Yeah, and not too much we have to say about this. We both thought that they would protect their quarterback at Justin Herbert. That's exactly what they're doing. They went and got an offensive tackle, the exact one that we thought that they were going to get. So, not too much to say except for Mike and I told you so. But all jokes aside, 14th, the Jets traded with Minnesota here to move up 9 picks. We had Minnesota taking Kwity Paye, edge rusher out of Michigan. Instead, the Jets ended up with the 14th overall pick. They felt like they really needed to protect their new real estate in Zach Wilson. They did that with Elijah Vera Tucker, who we both thought would go in the first round, but not here. And he goes out of USC to the Jets. What are your thoughts on the Jets trading up 9 spots to get an offensive lineman?
I think it's something they had to do. I'm not sure that they can run the ball with any running back, let alone LaMichael Perrine. So taking a running back here might have been futile. Vera Tucker can play multiple positions. I left that out about Rashawn Slater, too. He could play all 5 positions up and down the line, so it gives you flexibility. Well, the same thing kind of goes here with Vera Tucker. He's a flexible lineman as well. He can play outside at the offensive tackle, but he's probably going to be an all-pro player here at guard. So I think that he'll play left guard, and I think it's a smart move. Show your quarterback who you just brought in that you're trying to help him out here with some protection. I think it's a great move.
Yeah, I think, and again, we talk about how the Jets typically scapegoat their quarterback, the front office, it feels like, does. And so to protect him and actually give him something is great to see, because I haven't seen it. It's not something that typically happens, that they're protecting their quarterback. So I'm happy to see that they made the decision to do this. And Zach Wilson should already feel better than Sam Darnold and Mark Sanchez with that pick. 15th overall, I said it. I said beware the Ides of March or April or May or whatever month we're in, because Corona just makes everybody feel like we're in the same month all the time. I said watch out for number 15 when Mac Jones will fall to the New England Patriots and Bill Belichick will get a diamond and he will go and perfect that. He'll just be that diamond in the rough, just out there chiseling away. You let Bill Belichick into the Cave of Wonders, and he took what he could. So he's off on the magic carpet, flying around, and he's ready, because I'll say it again, and I've said it a lot, hell has no fury like a Belichick scorned. He saw his quarterback win a Super Bowl without him, and now he wants to show the world that he is just as good without Brady as he was with Brady. He's got a lot to prove, and now he ends up with Mac Jones, the exact pick that I had at 15th. I thought it would happen. I thought it would fall, and it did. So the Patriots get who I thought they would. You thought if J.C. Horn was on the board, the Patriots would go in this direction. What are your thoughts about their pick?
Yeah, well, you mentioned that other quarterback who went on to win a Super Bowl with Tom Brady. If you look back at Tom Brady's draft day picture, the photo they take when they're doing the physicals, it looks exactly like Mac Jones. And Tom used to get, a lot of hassle from this because he's not cut. He was considered to be flabby. It wasn't going to work out. He's not going to win Mr. Universe anytime soon. Now, obviously, he's taken care of his body over the years, but coming out of the box, he didn't look all cut up and ripped up. He's a quarterback. That's it's not necessary, but a lot of these guys are freak athletes. Well, you take a look at Mac Jones' picture next to his draft day picture, and they look the same. They look similar, and that's got to be scary. That's got to be scary for everyone else in the league, because who else can you compare that picture to? Tom Brady. Tom Brady turned out to be a pretty good quarterback for the Patriots. So I think that the opportunity for Mac Jones is there. I'm not sure he's a day one starter by any means. They still have Cam Newton that they brought in, but hey, why not? Why not sit on a bench for a little while? Why not learn from Cam Newton if you can learn? Not to be selfish. Don't take that away from Cam Newton. But, learning the Belichick system, and like Tom Brady, come in, not the highest touted quarterback at all, But then you come in, and then when you have your opportunity, you're ready. There ain't no looking back, and you're going to go on to win Super Bowls. I think this move has that same potential. I'm not saying it's gonna, but it definitely looks to be shaping up that way.
Yeah, falling into Belichick's lap. I mean, Bill Belichick was extremely tenacious in this free agency, and in being as tenacious as he was, he got a lot. And now Mac Jones comes into this team, and Mac Jones has an opportunity to throw to Jonnu Smith and Hunter Henry. And keep in mind, folks, I'm saying Mac Jones because I believe that Cam Newton will be the starter in the beginning, but I think he will eventually shift off to a specialty role. Mac Jones will be the starter of this Patriots team before the end of the season. Cam Newton will be used as a decoy, and he'll be used in special situations when Bill Belichick wants to harass you and confuse you and piss you off and run up the scoreboard and all that good stuff. He's one of those guys that when he's up by 10 with 3 minutes to go, he'll go for it on 4th and 2. So don't be surprised if Cam Newton is his show pony to have those direct snaps, bring in some wildcat, do some fun stuff, be a guy who goes out into the flat, maybe a flea flicker and whatnot. I believe Cam Newton will be used, but I think that Mac Jones will be the starter before the end of the season. Number 16 overall, I'm ecstatic about. First guy taken from the American Athletic Conference, which I've covered since its institution, before it even had a logo or a name. Tulsa linebacker Zaven Collins, number 16 to the Arizona Cardinals. Mike, you and I both thought that the Cardinals would go with Rashad Bateman. We thought that they would go to their wide receiver core. A core that's already good, that's added talent, that's added A.J. Green and DeAndre Hopkins last season, still has the Christian Kirk situation going on and whatnot. We thought that they would add yet another, but they decided to go with Zaven Collins. I wouldn't expect Arizona to go linebacker, but maybe Micah Parsons going off the board pushed their hand. And at the same time, I love the pick because Zaven Collins has been highly touted in the American, and it's good to see that the nation as a whole respects him. What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I think Zaven Collins is an excellent pick here. He can he's a man of all trades, if you would. He can play between the tackles. He can edge rush. This is a guy who is versatile. They have another versatile guy on their defense, and Isaiah Simmons can play just about every position. Jordan Hicks, outstanding linebacker as well. So I got to think that they're going to mix him in on the outside to start, maybe at the strong side even. But, this is best player on the board at this point in their eyes that could help their team the most, the quickest. So why not go for a guy that you feel good about? And obviously they felt good about Zaven Collins, and I think he's an excellent linebacker. I think he's deserving of being the second linebacker off the board.
Yeah, I think it's great to see, great to see Tulsa get the respect, Zaven Collins get the respect, and to see Collins go here higher than we both thought he would go, I think is wonderful. And I think it's a true testament to his work ethic, to what he put forward, and to the fact that the American Athletic, which I talk about all the time, I wouldn't say something unless I believed in it. The only reason why I support them is because I feel that they have the talent. And I don't think that they get the credit that they deserve. So to see him get some credit, I think is fantastic. Number 17th overall, Mike, this guy dropped. I was wondering, when you watch things, and he dropped to the second day. And, it's kind of like if you watch the movie Draft Day and the GMs are calling each other going, is there something wrong with this guy? Are you seeing something I'm not seeing? Because this guy was falling in the board, and I was like, is this a character issue? Is this an injury we don't know about? Why is this guy falling out of the first round? Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah fell out of the first round. We both had him going 17th to the Las Vegas Raiders, a linebacker out of Notre Dame. The Raiders ended up taking at this pick offensive tackle out of Alabama, Alex Leatherwood. What are your thoughts on this, and what are your thoughts about Jeremiah falling out of the first round?
I thought it was a curious pick here, and you're right. It makes you wonder, is there something wrong? Is there something I missed? And, sometimes that's all it takes, is one person to have that thought, and everybody else has the same thought, or they thought. I didn't think Leatherwood was the best offensive lineman on the board. I thought Christian Darrisaw was from Virginia Tech. So kind of surprised me in a way. But again, here's a guy from Alabama, can play outside. I think he's going to play better if he played guard, but they're going to put him at right tackle in Vegas. So this is going to be a curious move. Maybe they saw something not everybody did, but hey, it is what it is. This is what it's about. I think Leatherwood's capable of being a top, highly drafted offensive lineman. When there's another guy on the board that I got rated higher, I just raised my eyebrows a little bit.
Yeah, and neither you nor I had Alex Leatherwood going in the first round. So the fact that they're protecting their quarterback and looking to help the running game is great. Just not an area that I thought they would go to, especially since Josh Jacobs has done a fantastic job himself. Number 18 overall, you and I both thought that the Miami Dolphins would go Najee Harris, and they stunned here a little bit. They kept a Miami player in Miami, keeping Jalen Phillips there in, the Miami Hurricanes edge rusher, staying in Miami with the Miami Dolphins. What are your thoughts on Jalen Phillips, a name that we both know and that we both thought about in the first round, going this pick as opposed to the Dolphins taking Najee Harris?
Well, it's funny because in their hometown they had three guys who could play defensive end in the NFL, especially two of them, and considering Jalen Phillips and Greg Rousseau. Edge rushers, that's a coveted thing in the NFL. I mean, if you don't have a way to protect your quarterback, and if you don't have a way to attack the other quarterback, well, you're not doing what you're supposed to do on the field. So it's going to be interesting to see how they use him. Daniel Agba up front, who've been doing well. I think they're going to mix him in. I think they see him more as a project, but that can have some immediate impact. A lot of NFL teams find quality in rotating those defensive linemen in and out so they don't have to go every play. They're obviously going to use him in passing situations to start, and this is a guy who can rack up double-digit sacks in the NFL. I like the pick.
And that's the thing, too, is you look at the fact that, we thought that they would go and help their rushing attack, but with an edge rusher, bringing in Jalen Phillips, bringing in a guy in the area, again, a Miami player gives that immediate, you're going to get butts in the seats for that. You're going to get fan support. People are going to be excited to see him that are Hurricanes fans, might translate into Dolphins fans now. So PR-wise, it's good. Having an edge rusher help you out is good. Miami needing to go up against Mac Jones eventually, and obviously Buffalo's prolific, becoming even more prolific offense is a good thing. So I like it. And the fact that Jalen Phillips is going up against a rookie quarterback at some point in Mac Jones and a rookie quarterback with Zach Wilson, hey, nothing wrong there. Rookies coming in, all learning together, and having quarterbacks that haven't really found their footing yet. The majority of the AFC East, think about it. Josh Allen has the longest tenure of quarterback in the AFC East. So if I'm an edge rusher, I'm getting excited about the fact that we got some newbies here that haven't gotten 5 years, 10 years, 3 years under their belts in the NFL at quarterback. If I'm Jalen Phillips, I'm excited to be in the AFC East. Number 19, Washington football team goes with linebacker out of Kentucky, Jamin Davis. And we thought here that at this pick, Kadarius Toney, I had him going to Washington, and you had Micah Parsons falling here. Well, Micah obviously went off the board, and Kadarius Toney, I had him a pick too early. You had him a pick right on time, which we'll talk about in a second. What do you think about Washington not doing what either one of us thought they would do? You thought they would go linebacker. So they did go linebacker, and actually it makes sense with your pick, Mike. I thought they would go wide receiver. They went linebacker because Micah was off the board. Maybe Davis they thought was the best available. So they could have been right on par with exactly what you thought. So what's your take on Washington?
Yeah, I think Jamin Davis was the second best linebacker on the board, in the draft period overall, to Micah Parsons. Zaven Collins arguably could be right there with them. And, maybe this is the guy that they like second best to Micah Parsons. This is a guy who he can find the ball, and that's what you want out of a tackling machine. You want a guy who can get there with speed and quickness. And speed and quickness are two different things. I can teach you to be quicker. I can't teach you to be fast. So I can give you little things to help you along the way to improve your speed, but I'm not going to teach you how to be fast. I can't do that. Jamin Davis has the opportunity to do that both on and off the field. And what I mean by that is this is a guy who studies, watches tape, and he has a panache for making turnovers, fumbles, hard hits, swiping the ball, popping the ball like Peanut does out of the back's hands, and or intercepting the ball, strip sacks. This is a guy who's almost like a Swiss Army knife at the linebacker position. So I do like this pick, the linebacker out of Kentucky, Jamin Davis.
Yeah, and at number 20, and I think the pick is a good pick too for Washington. I think they need help all over. And, they have a lot of things to figure out at tight end, at running back, at quarterback, at wide receiver, at defense. I mean, really, Washington could have made any pick here, and it would have made sense. So, I understand why they did it. And you having Micah Parsons and them going with Jamin Davis makes sense, again, because same position at linebacker, and with Parsons off, they could have easily thought in Washington that Davis was the best available, so they took it, which would make your pick be right on par. 20 was traded, obviously, here. As we mentioned earlier, the Bears trading up to get Justin Fields at 11 with the Giants, who went down to 20. You and I both thought the Giants would get a wide receiver at this pick. I thought they would get Terrace Marshall Jr. out of LSU. You thought they would get Kadarius Toney. The Bears would get Kadarius Toney out of this. With the pick being flip-flopped, we thought the Bears would take a wide receiver. I thought the Giants would take a wide receiver. So the Giants did. So my pick was right on par with that. As far as the 20th pick, you had Kadarius Toney to a different team, but it was right. So you had the right player, different team due to the trade. I had the right position, different player. So what are your thoughts on Kadarius Toney going 20 to the Giants?
Yeah, I like Kadarius Toney a lot. I think he can do a lot. He can offer your team a lot. He runs 4.38. But then again, this year everybody's running a 4.4 practically. But he's always had that speed. He's always had that ability to get open. He's always had that ability to escape tackles on it's either 33 or 36. I can't remember off the top of my head. But basically about a third of the time he gets the ball in his hands, he's going to make somebody miss. He's going to elude tacklers. And you want a guy who can elude 30%, 33% of the tackles that are coming his way. I look at him and I'm trying to compare his game to one guy, and the only guy I can compare his game to is Tyreek Hill. And that's a scary thought for opponents in the NFC East, because I'm not saying that these other names at receiver are world beaters, but they got a healthy set of receivers here for Daniel Jones when you consider Darius Slayton, Kenny Golladay, John Ross, super fast, Sterling Shepard, Dante Pettis. Okay, he wasn't what he was supposed to be. They had a deep dive at Davis Sills on the roster as well. So there's some names here, but I think Kadarius Toney is going to be given every opportunity to get on the field and make plays happen. He's a scary player. You got to figure out a way to make sure the other team is scared of him by putting him in a position to be successful. As long as the Giants make opportunities for him, he's going to pay them back well for drafting him at 20.
Yeah, I think it's great that they got Kadarius Toney. Again, the Giants traded down. They get a wide receiver in Kadarius Toney. They haven't had a wide receiver in like 2 years at least with the Giants of any note on the team that could be a number one guy. Kadarius Toney comes in with a great situation. Daniel Jones gets a huge weapon. Saquon Barkley gets some alleviation from everything that he has to do, hopefully. I think it's great. The Giants got draft stock in the future, and they got Toney. I think that they arguably won this thing, and if Justin Fields pans out, then both teams won it. So I think it could be great for both the Bears and the Giants here. I love the pick at 20 with Kadarius Toney. I think it's fantastic for the Giants, and a big shout out to them. And Cowboys fans, please understand something. You now have to go up against Devontae Smith in Philly and Kadarius Toney with the New York Giants. So something interesting to say here. But you got Micah Parsons to help you out in case those guys come across the middle, so that's good too. Mike, 21, you and I both had Elijah Vera Tucker going to the Colts at number 21 to protect their quarterback situation, which has changed over the years. Kwity Paye, who we had going a little bit earlier to Minnesota. Kwity Paye in the trade where the Jets traded up to 14th and took that 14th from Minnesota. That's where we thought Kwity Paye would go. And then Elijah Vera Tucker ended up going to the Jets at that pick, ironically, which put Kwity Paye here. So in a weird roundabout way, where the Jets where the Vikings were going to pick was Kwity Paye, but with moving that around and taking Elijah Vera Tucker, the Jets took our pick, which ended up being this pick, which in some weird world, if you put all the dominoes together, if A equals B and B equals C, then Kwity Paye makes sense going to this pick, even though you and I had Elijah Vera Tucker, because of the way that everything shook out. The Jets taking him, Minnesota moving, and allowing the Colts to be here puts Kwity Paye in blue and white. What do you think about it?
Well, this is a guy who's really fast in Kwity Paye. I think he's an outstanding, he can play outside linebacker, edge rusher, whatever the case may be here. They're going to line him up in their scheme here. They run a 4-3, so they're going to line him up on the outside, the defensive end to rush. He didn't put up big rush stats, but he's explosive. And I tend to think that if he has the right coaching and the right players alongside of him, which he does, and Tyquan Lewis, DeForest Buckner, and Grover Stewart, that's an outstanding line when you add Kwity Paye to the mix there. He's got an explosiveness. He can get to the quarterback, and hey, that's what they drafted him for. He's got one job, get to the quarterback, and I think he's going to be able to do that for New York.
Yeah, so I think it's very interesting how things shook out here with Elijah Vera Tucker, the pick that we had that ended up getting picked, and Kwity Paye getting picked here. We'll go 22-32 to finish off how our mock draft did against the actual draft of the NFL, as we are inside of the Fantasy Football Power Hour, proudly presented by the Wildcat Sports Pub, exclusively here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. When I say we, I'm talking Mike Sofka and myself, Dan Tortora. Mike of Hall of Fame FantasyFootball.com, myself of WakeUpCallDT.com, and both of us of the Winning Fantasy Football group on Facebook. We'll take a quick step aside for a fast break. When we spin back around, Mike and I will bring you the last portion of our mock draft and how it did against the actual picks inside of the NFL in the 2021 first round of the NFL Draft, inside of these beautiful Cafe Kubal studios. We appreciate you being here, as always.
Cafe Kubal Mobile Cafe brings the cafe experience to you. We'll roll out to your neighborhood or office, ready to serve our locally crafted espresso bar to our loyal patrons. Inquire at cafekubal.com. Cafe Kubal, coffee for the soul.
Ma and Pa's Kettle Corn and Popcorn Factory, located on 201 7th North Street in Liverpool, is home to over 40 flavors with more than 200 flavors in their total wheelhouse. Sky's the limit for this sweet and savory Central New York company. Keep it local at your parties, fundraisers, wedding showers, baby showers, and more by calling 315-450-MA-PA. That's 315-450-6272 for popcorn bars with custom flavors and colors at your upcoming event. Make sure to visit them on 201 7th North Street in Liverpool, New York. And for more information, go to maandpazsnacks.com. Ma and Pa's Kettle Corn and Popcorn Factory. How corny are you? The Millhouse Market, located on 3790 New York 13 in Pulaski, New York, is worth the drive every time. Make sure you make your way to the Millhouse Market, but download the app before you go so you have everything at your fingertips, and you can see the menu, every single ingredient inside of each of the sandwiches and the quinoa bowls, the rice bowls, the pizzas, everything there, the salads at your fingertips. You could see everything. You could see what is in it and the entire menu. It's extremely user-friendly, and you have contactless pay, can do everything on the app. Tuesday through Saturday, they're open 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. in the drive-thru, as well as to sit down inside and, of course, to go inside of their general store and get the local products from local companies, as the Millhouse Market doesn't just work to support their name in the community, but they work to support others as well, going outside of themselves to pay it forward, which I appreciate. And on Sundays, they're open 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. with breakfast served all day. So head out to the Millhouse Market, ingrained in our taste buds and ingrained in our community. They go an extra mile and then an extra mile after that, which is why you should go the extra mile to go see them today on 3790 New York 13 in Pulaski, New York. The Millhouse Market. Worth the drive every time. And here inside of the Cafe Kubal Studios, Mike and I giving you our mock draft up against the actual draft and seeing what picks we had right, what positions we may have had, but they picked a different player, or if a trade worked out in a weird way, like the Kwity Paye thing kind of worked out if you follow the bouncing ball of all of that we talked about before the fast break. So inside of the Cafe Kubal Studios, Mike Sofka of Hall of Fame FantasyFootball.com, myself, Dan Tortora of WakeUpCallDT.com, and both of us in our joint venture of Winning Fantasy Football, the group that you can join for free on Facebook by simply searching in the Facebook search bar, Winning Fantasy Football. So, with that being said, the Fantasy Football Power Hour took over both hours of today's show, proudly presented by the Wildcat Sports Pub on 3680 Milton Avenue in Camillus, New York. You can head there to watch all the games, to have your fantasy drafts, to be a part of our Wake Up Call Fantasy 10-year anniversary drafts, and so much more. Head out there to 3680 Milton Avenue in Camillus, New York, 7 days a week for the Wildcat, as well as for takeout, delivery, or catering, to call 315-487-2222. That's 315-487-2222. Mike and I giving you picks, speaking of the twos, 22 through 32, the actual draft and our mock draft up against one another. Mike, at 22, I thought the Titans would take J.C. Horn, cornerback out of South Carolina, who went a lot earlier to Carolina. You had them taking Jason Oweh, edge rusher out of Penn State. The Tennessee Titans, at number 22, ended up taking Caleb Farley, cornerback out of Virginia Tech. You had Farley going earlier in the draft to the Cowboys, so you had him there, and I had the Titans taking a corner, and JC was off the board. So just like with your pick very recently here, where one of the guys is off, and Davis going to the team when Micah Parsons wasn't available to Washington. In the same respect, my J.C. Horn pick with J.C. off the board makes sense that they would go Caleb Farley at this pick, as I thought that they would take a corner. What are your thoughts on the Tennessee Titans pick at 22?
Solid cover corners are the second most important thing on the defense. You need to press. You need to get after the quarterback, but you need to lock somebody down. You need to take away half the field. 5 cornerbacks went in the first round. His is the third of 5 here, and the only 2 guys to go before you are Patrick Surtain and J.C. Horn. I think that says a lot for you. He's a big-bodied guy, Caleb Farley is. He's just under 6'2". He plays well in zone. He can tackle in space. This is a guy who I like a lot. He's had some troubles staying injury-free. He's had 2 back surgeries on the ACL, but this guy comes right back, and he's come right back so far. I like his coverage ability. I think he's going to do well against some big-bodied receivers. And don't forget, it's not always about the player. It's not always about the team. Maybe it's about who that team plays. Maybe you got to look at some of the receivers that player is going to cover. He's going to have to cover twice a year. DJ Chark coming out of Jacksonville. He's going to have to recover the best on the other team. So this is a good move for Tennessee, I think.
Yeah, and like I said, I had them taking J.C. Horn. J.C. Horn was already off the board. Pat Surtain was off the board as well, so taking Caleb Farley here, not a bad bet. I thought that Tennessee was going to go corner. They went corner. The guys were off the board that maybe they would have went for, so it makes sense why they went Caleb Farley in this situation. 23 was supposed to be the Jets, but they traded up with the Minnesota Vikings to take 14, which dropped Minnesota here. Minnesota being in this situation, I thought they'd take Kwity Paye at 14. So did you, Mike. They couldn't because the Colts took him at 21. So at 23, the Minnesota Vikings go for offensive tackle Christian Darrisaw out of Virginia Tech. What are your thoughts? Back-to-back Virginia Tech players coming off the board with Farley and Darrisaw. What do you think about Minnesota looking to protect and help the rushing attack of Delvin Cook with Christian Darrisaw?
Yeah, I think this is a great pick for them. And this is a guy who can pass protect. He can run block. He's got outstanding power. He's got a fierceness about him. He loves to finish. He loves to pancake people. He'll block down the field as well on run plays. I think Christian Darrisaw still being on the board at this point was almost a shock to Minnesota with Leatherwood going earlier. So I think this is an outstanding move for Minnesota and Christian Darrisaw.
Yeah, I think it's great for them to have some protection and be able to pick up Christian Darrisaw here. It's a guy that you talked about before, Mike, and I think it's a move that you got to take at this point. And if they were going to go Kwity Paye like we thought they were, if they in their room were thinking that and he's off the board, well, you look at, okay, is there another guy we want to take at that position, or is there somebody else that makes sense? And so Christian Darrisaw was the thing that made sense for them, and that's where they went. So I can see it. I can understand it. Offensive linemen are a must. Jacksonville is a perfect example of when you can't protect your quarterback and you can't help your running back and you put yourself in a situation like that, it's a danger zone. So, there's never anything wrong with picking up a lineman, especially having depth there. We both thought that Pittsburgh at 24 would go running back. I thought they'd go Javonte Williams because I thought Travis would be off the board, arguably if the Jets made the right decision, which I didn't expect them to do, and they did not. We'll talk about that in a minute. So, I thought that Pittsburgh would go Javonte Williams because Najee Harris and Travis Etienne were off the board, and Javonte was my third overall running back. You had Travis Etienne going here because he was your second behind Najee Harris. They did go running back, but at 24, Najee Harris fell to them. So you and I both thought running back. We weren't wrong there. And I think that if Najee Harris was available on our board in our mind, this made perfect sense. So I think even though we had different names here, I don't think either you or I will argue with the fact that if Najee Harris was available to Pittsburgh at 24, which he was, that they should take him, which they did.
Yeah, part of the reason why I was questioning the pick at all, I thought that Najee Harris would be gone already, but everybody had, across the board, everybody had Najee Harris going at 24, and I was like, there's no way this guy drops that far. And sure enough, he did. And that just goes to show you the mentality that a lot of teams still have about the running back being a disposable commodity in the NFL. These are guys that aren't expected to live out their rookie contracts on the field. These are guys that are somewhat expendable. But when you see a talent like a Najee Harris coming out of Alabama, winning program, the guy's a winner, the guy can catch the ball, the guy's big body back as well. He's a 3-down running back if you want him to be, and that's what they need in Pittsburgh. They let some guys go. They made some moves, and I think it's a great pick for them. I think it's a great fit for Najee Harris, and I look for Najee Harris to turn out to be a top 5 running back in short order.
Yeah, and I like it. I like this pick. I think it's perfect. I like this story behind the fact that his draft party wasn't even about him. He actually went to a place that helped people that are homeless. Great story. I shared it on Facebook, and I'll share it again on the Facebook page at Wake Up Call DT. But to know that Najee Harris had a draft party that wasn't even about him, it was about displaced families, families trying to find a home, just like he was, and the place that he stayed at with his family when he was growing up for a couple years, I believe, that he went back there and he brought them pizza and brought them chicken, brought them, different desserts and whatnot and party favors so that he could make the day about them and say thank you to them for housing him. You never know who, again, you never, ever, ever know the person that you're meeting, the person that you're talking to, and where they're going to go and what they can be in the future. So there's so much beauty to the fact of, think about all these people that helped Najee Harris, not knowing who this man was going to be. He was homeless, and now he is an NFL player who came to them, who paid it forward. So I love it. I love this story. And it just goes to show that you never know who you're helping. And that's not why you should help him. You don't help him to get something back. But you never know who you're helping, and you never know who needs it. And you never know how they'll pay it forward in the future. So to help somebody else should be second nature to us. And cheers to hoping that we start making it second nature, if not first nature, as we move forward. And thank you to Najee Harris for going the extra mile. 25th. You and I both thought that Pat Freiermuth was going to be taken off the board by Jacksonville, tight end out of Penn State. I did say, and I quote, in our mock draft, if the Jets don't take Travis Etienne at 23, and obviously they traded up, but if the draft had been the way that it was set here when we did it, before the trades happened on draft day, I said if the Jets are not smart enough to take Travis Etienne, and I don't trust that they are, and he falls to Jacksonville, I do not believe that Urban Meyer can help himself, and he will reunite Travis Etienne and Trevor Lawrence in Jacksonville together, going from Clemson to the Jaguars. It's exactly what happened. What do you think about the pick?
I was a little stunned initially, but, now hearing news that Urban Meyer's made mention to using Travis Etienne kind of like he used Percy Harvin at Florida. Kind of gives you a flash. He's kind of like Percy Harvin, kind of like Kadarius Toney. Well, this is Travis Etienne. This guy can score from anywhere on the field. He's a one-cut runner, puts his foot in the ground and takes off. He can catch the ball. He played on a national championship caliber team for quite a few years, so he has a proven track record. I don't think they burned him out or used him up. I think they used him effectively, and I think he's going to be an excellent pro and an excellent fit for Jacksonville. And you're right. What other comfort can you have besides a tight end than your running back who you're real familiar with? And not all the time is it just talent. Sometimes it's getting used to working with talent, getting used to guys' idiosyncrasies, getting used to this look means that, and so forth. So you can't. It takes a long time to develop that. You already have some of those patterns right here with Trevor Lawrence and Travis Etienne, both proven commodities. So I think it's a great pick. I'm excited to see how Urban Meyer uses Travis Etienne.
Yeah, you got a guy who knows his quarterback, who can block for him, knows his tendencies. Listen, bringing Clemson to any NFL team is not a bad idea. So bringing Trevor Lawrence and Travis Etienne to the backfield near you in Jacksonville, Duval, you know what Clemson did. They lost 3 games in 3 years with Trevor Lawrence. Travis Etienne had a heyday. He did great stuff. Trevor did great stuff. They know each other. They know the weaknesses. They know the strengths. They can immediately go in there, learn together, the offense together, implement it together, and rise together. So I love it. I'm excited. At the same time, I look at the fantasy side of things, as you know we always do here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, with Mr. Mike Sofka every Wednesday. And throughout every Wednesday, the Fantasy Football Power Hour that we're in right now, proudly presented by the Wildcat Sports Pub on 3680 Milton Avenue in Camillus, New York. My question is now with James Robinson. Do they use him? How do they use him? And what happens? Because he was a fantasy stud last year. He was almost the Offensive Rookie of the Year. So, that's the question mark that I have, because I think Travis Etienne will get his time. But hopefully they'll use them both. Remember that, Travis is a rookie, and James Robinson's got a year under his belt, and hopefully that counts for something with Urban Meyer and the crew. 26th overall, I thought that the Browns would go wide receiver with Rondale Moore out of Purdue. You thought Jalen Phillips would get picked, the edge rusher out of Miami. Well, Miami picked Jalen Phillips, so he wasn't on the board at this time. So looking at who the Browns went with, they went with Greg Newsome II, a corner out of Northwestern. In the last couple drafts, Mike, they have been going heavy on their secondary. What do you think about the Browns going with Greg Newsome out of Northwestern?
Yeah, their defense is definitely scary. I mean, you look up and down. I mean, the line, you got Clowney and you got Garrett on the line. Their linebackers aren't bad, and Taki and Jacob Phillips, Anthony Walker. Their defensive secondary is stacked too. John Johnson, Grant Delpit. The question mark was, I guess, Troy Hill at the nickel, but they look like they're going to supplant Greedy Williams, who I thought was going to be their starter at right cornerback with Greg Newsome. And you can't argue with Greg Newsome, number 2 guy from Northwestern to be taken in the first round here. He's big. He's fast. Again, a cover corner is coveted because that can help your pass rush as well. If half the field is automatically covered just about every play, your pass rushers can pin their ears back and go after the quarterback. So this gives everybody a benefit. This gives the line another boost at Cleveland. This gives the secondary another boost at Cleveland, and I think it's terrific.
Yeah, even more so they go after their secondary, with Newsome, and to bolster it up, to raise it even higher. And, Cleveland, low-key trying to work to have a very electrifying secondary, and maybe the most electrifying secondary in the NFL. As far as youth goes and longevity, they're building And I don't know if people are necessarily paying attention to it, but I'm going to call some attention to it. They brought my guy Sheldrick Redwine from Miami that I covered when he was being recruited out of high school. He's out there. He got there recently. A lot of stuff going on in Cleveland with their secondary. Something to watch. And shout out to Northwestern out of the Big Ten, like Mike said, having 2 guys drafted in the first round. Number 27, Mike, in this draft, I had Christian Darrisaw blocking for Lamar Dawson. And we found out, obviously, as we've talked about, this Christian Darrisaw went 23rd, so he wasn't available at 27. You had Trayvon Moehrig Woodard, a safety out of TCU, going to Baltimore. Baltimore instead decided to get Rashad Bateman, who we had going off the board earlier to Arizona at number 16. He was still available, and Baltimore couldn't help themselves. The wide receiver out of Minnesota goes to the Ravens. What are your thoughts now as Marquise Hollywood Brown is there, Miles Boykin, Rashad Bateman is now going to be there in a very young receiving core. What are your thoughts on Rashad falling 11 spots from our mock draft to the Baltimore Ravens?
I think Rashad Bateman is one of the best receivers that not a lot of people were talking about. Almost like a secret. You know, it's kind of be exciting to see him on the field with Sam Watkins and Marquise Brown. What this does is it lines up a Miles Boykin to be out of a job. They drafted a Devin Duvernay last year, and you know he hasn't been on the field enough to prove himself. But now you got Sammy Watkins in the mix. You got Marquise Hollywood Brown, who was brought in the same time as Boykin and had day and night a situation. You know, I mentioned before about the tight end situation where the Ravens brought in Mark Andrews and Hayden Hurst the same year. Hayden Hurst, earlier in the draft than Mark Andrews, and Mark Andrews ended up being the guy that panned out. Baltimore did the same thing here. They brought in Marquise Hollywood Brown and Miles Boykin, knowing one of them wasn't going to work, and it looks like the one that wasn't going to work, it looks like they're covering that up for Miles Boykin. So I feel bad for Miles Boykin, but I think Rashad Bateman is an outstanding receiver. He can be a true number 1 on most teams. Now, here's the question. Are they going to be able to get him the ball? Lamar Jackson puts up a lot of rushing yards. I don't think he's greedy like Cam Newton at the goal line, but I think that he knows that it's time to go and get some yards, and he's not afraid to run. He can pass as well, which a lot of people underestimate. So does this open up the passing game that much more for the Ravens now that they got Sammy Watkins? Are they going to be able to get the ball to that many guys? Are they going to be able to make them that fantasy worthy? That's the only question I have, not the talent. There's only one football on the field.
Yeah, you know, like you said, Miles Boykin, Marquise Hollywood Brown, Sammy Watkins, Rashad Bateman. Are they going to be able to get everybody the ball, as well as one of the best tight ends in the nation, Mark Andrews? So makes perfect sense. You know, they're definitely, put it like this, they're giving Lamar Jackson a ton of weapons, but is he going to get the ball out? And how is he going to do it? He did a fantastic job playing quarterback as a rookie. He's had his good moments. His numbers haven't been bad his entire time in the NFL. But it's about the fact that they came into the season last season as a team that was supposed to make it to the AFC Championship game, if not the Super Bowl. And they got stunted by themselves. And so they really need to figure things out. There's a lot of talent there. I thought that they would help out with offensive line. So a little confusing there for me why they would go wide receiver. I guess they couldn't help themselves, knowing that Rashad fell 11 spots from where you and I thought he would go to Arizona. So from one nest to the other, from the Cardinals to the Ravens, Rashad Bateman's there. Now it's about how crowded is this going to be and can they make it work. And now if I'm Sammy Watkins, I'm pissed off too. Why the hell did I come here for a year? So it's going to be interesting to see how things shake out. Mike, at 28, you had the Saints taking a wide receiver in Elijah Moore. I had them taking a wide receiver in Amon-Ra St. Brown, Equanimeous St. Brown's brother. They took Peyton Turner, a defensive end out of Houston. What do you think about New Orleans' pick?
Well, you know, when you look at the math, it makes a lot of sense. Just because Cameron Jordan's getting up there in age, they still have Mark Davenport on the other side. And Peyton Turner's a guy who has the potential. He has the skills. He has the speed. He has the size. But he's still considered to be a work in progress. So this makes a lot of sense. He can line up behind Cameron Jordan. He can learn from him, and he'll probably get some opportunities to pass rush. And barring an injury, I don't think he's going to be a starter, but he's going to have opportunity to grow. So I think it's a tremendous opportunity for both Peyton Turner and the Saints, and hopefully it'll work out for both of them here.
Yeah, we know that, as I said years ago, the Saints would win a Super Bowl when they finally had a little bit above average defense, one that was average or above average. And they did that, and they beat the Colts and Peyton Manning at the time when Drew Brees had enough on defense to help him out. So I like that Peyton Turner's going there in the sense of trying to aid their defense, but I'm a little confused with us both thinking they would go wide receiver, and last year them having so many issues, not knowing, was Michael Thomas injured? Was he hurt? Was he holding out? Was he upset? What was going on with him? And the fact that they really were depleted at wide receiver. It was injury, and they're going to like fourth string, fifth string, random guys coming out of the woodwork, really not knowing who their dominant person was, not having a dominant person. So I thought that they would try to address this at this point. And they were drafting so late that, it was, to me, it was interesting. There's still some guys on the board, obviously, but being 28th, maybe why they didn't trade up to get a receiver or why they didn't get one in general. But I do hope things work out for Peyton Turner in the defense. Green Bay Packers at 29, Mr. Sofka. We thought the Green Bay Packers, I know that Zaven Collins that went earlier to the Arizona Cardinals at 16, which I'm very happy about, where we thought Rashad Bateman was going to go. To see this situation where Zaven Collins was already off the board, 13 picks earlier, we both had Zaven Collins here. We thought Green Bay was going to take him at 29, the linebacker out of Tulsa. Instead, they decided to take, at 29, the cornerback out of Georgia, Eric Stokes, who neither of us had in the first round. What are your thoughts?
Well, you can't go wrong with taking a guy from the SEC. Eric Stokes, again, he has size, he's physical, he's quick, he has the speed. The one thing I didn't like everybody always saying all draft was great twitch. He's got an outstanding twitch, wonderful twitch. I still don't know what twitch means in that respect.
I guess it's like maybe quick movement off, I guess something like that.
No,
so.
I know. I'm just kind of making fun of it a little bit here. I'm not going to say he has a quick twitch, but,
it's like when somebody says there's a sexy pick, Mike. I can't get around it. So.
Exactly, right? Well, Kevin King for the Green Bay Packers, he was racking up some tackles in a lot of games last year. So from a fantasy perspective and from a numeric perspective, it looked like he was getting those tackles because he was getting picked on. He was the weakest of the corners in that whole division. So I think this doesn't bode well for Kevin King. I think Eric Stokes has an opportunity to step in and start right away. It's probably a coin flip at this point, but I see by the end of the year Eric Stokes starting in place of Kevin King. I think it's an outstanding pick for the Green Bay Packers, even though
Oh, we lost you for a second. You said even though what?
Even though it does nothing to make Aaron Rodgers happy.
Yeah, and that's the thing is this is a pick that helps Aaron Rodgers, but it helps him in alleviating some of the stress of having teams run up the scoreboard on you. Again, like I mentioned with other teams today. But at the same time, Aaron Rodgers, you got Devontae Adams, but I think he's just, where are my receivers? Where are my receivers? Where are my receivers? Hey, I think last year we should get a receiver. No, we're going to draft Jordan Love to be a replacement. Oh, okay, and we're going to trade up to get him. So, I don't think they've done themselves any favors in Green Bay. I was, from what I'm told from people that I trust close to the situation, there is some damage to be reconciled if they can. And everybody's hush-hush right now. The coaching staff, like nobody's doing anything. It's like locking the doors and trying to figure out, can we save this marriage or not? So, Dr. Finkelstein is in there and they're talking. And that's what it feels like. Green Bay, with Aaron, made him wait 1,000 years behind Brett Favre when he unretired about 62 times. And then now, getting Jordan Love when he's made no sign that he was going to retire anytime soon. So I don't think they've done themselves any favors. On top of that, not drafting him the aide that maybe he wants at wide receiver, which I could understand. It's just you don't take your MVP and not help him and get his replacement at the same time, and then him sit here and go, well, I had to wait, and now I'm being forced out. So my time was precious in the beginning. You didn't care. My time's precious at this point in my career, and it doesn't feel like you care. So I don't know this as a fact, but if I jumped in the head of Aaron Rodgers, I would say, you made me wait. Now it feels like you're forcing me out, and you're not doing anything to help me at wide receiver. So thanks, guys, for nothing. And the fact that he thought in the playoff game against Tampa that he was going 4 downs. He didn't know that they were going to punt, allegedly. And so he would have done things differently on the field because he thought he had 4 opportunities, not 3. So it seems like him and the Packers organization are not on the same page. And the question now is, can they get through this, or is the damage already too far gone? 30th overall, the Buffalo Bills were supposed to pick Hayer, and the Buffalo Bills were supposed to go with what I thought would be Caleb Farley, the corner out of Virginia Tech. Mike thought it would be Terrace Marshall Jr., the wide receiver out of LSU. They decided to go with an edge rusher, Greg Rousseau, who Mike had going off the board a lot earlier out of Miami, Florida. Mike, what do you think about the fact that the Buffalo Bills, that have already gotten a bunch of talented players on defense and talented players on the D-line and re-signed people on the defense to help them out, are now adding yet another defensive lineman? It looks like, to the victor goes the spoils. I mean, this is a team that has talent on offense, youth on defense, talent on defense. They have enough, and they've made good moves to bring in weapons for Josh Allen. And now defensively, it looks like they're just going to have waves of defenders coming into you that not necessarily have to start, but can come in and still attack you. To me, Buffalo is saying, we don't want to win the AFC East this year. We want to win the AFC East every year, and we want to vie for a Super Bowl. I think that this makes a nasty team even nastier, which I don't see how you can be mad at this pick at all.
Well, Greg Rousseau's an athletic guy. I mean, he used to play wide receiver, for God's sake. So he's long. He can get to the quarterback. He's got a good motor. But here's the thing on Buffalo. Their defensive ends are getting a little long in the tooth. Yeah, they picked up A.J. Epinesa a couple years ago, but their starters are Mario Addison and Jerry Hughes, and those guys are going to be 34 and 33 respectively on week 1 kickoff. So they had to get somebody in the pipeline there, and when a Greg Rousseau is talented guy, maybe needs a little time, that's the ideal situation. Let him learn from a Jerry Hughes, let him learn from a Mario Addison, and let him be the next guy to step up with A.J. Epinesa on that defensive line for the Bills.
Yeah, I see no issue with this pick whatsoever because, again, I think a defense and a strong team in general is getting stronger, and the defense is getting stronger. At 31st overall, Mike, you and I had the runner-up of the Super Bowl, the Chiefs taking Tevin Jenkins. Tevin Jenkins out of Oklahoma State, the offensive tackle to help their offensive line. Well, they decided to trade out of the first round and give Baltimore another pick, as Baltimore went with Odafe Oweh, Penn State's edge rusher. What are your thoughts about Baltimore getting back into the first round, taking an edge rusher, and the fact that Kansas City, that glaringly had an issue at offensive line in the Super Bowl, decided to trade out instead of taking an offensive lineman?
This is an interesting pick. This one raised my eyebrows here. So, I hope it works out for Baltimore here. Jason Oweh is definitely a project for them. He has size, he has speed, he has quickness. He can be an edge rusher, which is what he's primarily going to be. He's going to be a situational edge rusher to start with. So I don't know where he's going to fit in the scheme behind a Malik Harris, behind a Patrick Queen. I don't know if he's going to fit on the line yet, but Calais Campbell's getting long in the tooth. He's moved a lot more inside. Derek Wolfe is long in the tooth there as well. So, there's going to be some opportunities for him to get on the field. I don't think he's going to be a Pro Bowl player immediately, but he has the physical skills. He just needs a little more development. So hopefully this will work out for Baltimore.
Yeah, I look at it on the side of the Chiefs. I don't think it was a good decision. You're not picking high in the first round. When you're the runner-up in the Super Bowl, you're not picking at the top of any of the rounds. So, unless you trade and move some stuff around, you're not getting high draft picks, which is a testament to how well you played, but you have a glaring issue on your offensive line and you didn't address it. So I don't agree with the Chiefs making this pick or trading this pick away and getting out of the first round. I don't think it was a smart decision to make, and I think they needed the help, and hopefully it doesn't blow up in their face that they didn't take the chance here when I think they should have. 32nd, Tampa Bay Buccaneers, the Super Bowl champions, reigning Super Bowl champions. Tom Brady winning his first Super Bowl out of New England. Joe Tryon is who you had going out of Washington as an edge rusher. I had edge rusher Jalen Phillips. Jalen wasn't available. Joe Tryon was. You were exactly right, and we were both right by position. So what do you think about this last pick of the first round?
Well, again, they definitely need somebody to line up behind Jason Pierre. Paul's getting a little, older. William Goldston's not getting any younger, and Ndamukong Suh's not getting any younger. So they're going to need some help on the line. They need some help from guys who can step in and almost immediately, if due to injury or some other problem, that he can immediately step in. I don't think he's as much of a project as some of the other players that were picked ahead of him. So I think that bodes well for Tampa. I think that he's going to be able to get on the field immediately, not necessarily as an every down starter, maybe in pass rush situations. But I think it's a good pick for Tampa. I think it's a good move.
Yeah, and again, you and I both had an edge rusher here, them helping out their defense, which was already a threat, which I don't think got a lot of respect. Again, people focus on Tom Brady when Tom Brady's on the team, and they don't necessarily focus on the defense. But the Patriots, you can argue their last 2 Super Bowls that they won was more their defense leaning on them than Tom Brady. And then the Bucs here. I mean, Brady throwing multiple interceptions and the Bucs winning because they had the better defense than the Chiefs did. And so, now they're helping it out even more so. Jalen Phillips, who I had, was not available when this pick came around. So, but I still thought they would go edge. And then Joe Tryon was available, and Mike got it exactly right. And I remember looking at it going, pretty sure Mike got that. I'm pretty sure he tied the bow on the first round very well. So with that being said, that is our mock draft. And a lot of our picks were spot on. And if it wasn't the exact name, Mike, then we had the position or we had the idea around it. So I can honestly tell you, our first ever mock draft of doing the entire first round, picking live with the fans, that as you look back on this, and I actually wrote about every pick here on Facebook, on facebook.com/livenowdt, so you can see my comments about all this. If we weren't exactly right, we were close, and if teams traded, we still somehow, in a way, in a lot of situations, I had things on point. So I would say that we did very well with our mock draft, Mr. Sofka. I would say the NFL, for the most part, listened to us at least in part somewhere. So looking at this, I got to be proud. If this was a term paper, you and I both passed and we get to graduate. So that's a good thing.
Well, it's good and bad. Like I said, a lot of these guys aren't going to work out, unfortunately. And, if you take a look at it, a year from now is the better time to look at it. And 3 years from now is a really good time to look at it. But I think our mock draft was more instead of being what should they take, it was what will they take. And I think we did okay there. And, time will tell if the NFL and us were right. I don't want the NFL to come back and blame us and go, well, you said, I don't want that. I don't think that's going to happen, though. So I think it was fun to do. I appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, and as always, Mike and I push the envelope to do even more and to bring you something that's innovative, different. And, basically, as I told Mike a long time ago, I want to create a show that I would want to go back and watch myself if it wasn't me doing it. And so, if it was a total stranger and this was the premise and this was all the stuff, would I go back and watch it? And then even more so, when I know that I did it, would I go back and watch myself and be able to enjoy the show and enjoy what Mike had to say? So we're creating shows here that we would go back and watch. We hope you do too. You can find them on youtube.com/wakeupcalldt, facebook.com/wakeupcalldt, on wakeupcalldt.com's fantasy football tab and fantasy football casts, and of course Hall of Fame fantasyfootball.com and different areas where Mike shares it, as well as our winning fantasy football group on Facebook. So Plenty of places for you to go to watch these back and to watch them live. Proudly presented by the Wildcat Sports Pub, the home of fantasy sports, and of course our fantasy football leagues in Central and Upstate New York on 3680 Milton Avenue in Camillus, New York. Mike, as always, thank you for everything, and being the astute professional that you are, and really making this fun and making these shows that I can't wait to go back and watch myself on a rainy day.
Well, I appreciate it as well, Dan, and please, everybody, make sure you check on over to our Facebook group, Winning Fantasy Football, and of course the website, Hall of Fame Fantasy Football. I've released some new products this year. You can win your draft. You can dominate your draft real affordably. I have the Adjusted Explosive Index, the grading for wide receivers there as well. That really helps you in dynasty leagues. So by all means, please give us a shout. Drop me a line. Check out the website. If there's some information you don't see on the website that you'd like to see, I'm open to that as well. But my whole thing is in high year right now. Fantasy football season is going to ramp up very quickly here, so make sure you're prepared and check out the webpage, HallOfFameFantasyFootball.com, and our Facebook group, Winning Fantasy Football.
Absolutely. As always, Mike, I'll talk with you soon, and thank you for everything, and stay safe.
All right, thank you, Dan. Speak with you next time.
Take care. That coming from Mr. Sofka here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, where sports meets that thing called life. Very happy to have you here, folks, as always, and appreciate you so very much for joining us inside of the Fantasy Football Power Hour, proudly presented by the one, the only, the wonderful, the beautiful, the incredible Wildcat Sports Pub, led by Danny Tellman and his entire team on 3680 Milton Avenue in Camillus, New York. Find your way over there for indoor dining 7 days a week, as well as catering, takeout, and delivery by calling 315-487-2222. That's 315-487-2222 for the Wildcat Sports Pub. Thanks to Mike Sofka, and thanks to you as we put our mock draft up against the actual draft. And you can go back and watch it and see all of our picks. And, of course, on Facebook, you can read in our timeline everything I had to say about it. And all of the picks, the ones that we had right, the ones that were different, and everything in between. So a big thanks to Mike for making this the Fantasy Football Power Hours today, as the draft took up the entire show, as it should, with the first round and plenty to talk about. And I still went a half an hour over, even though we dedicated all 2 hours to it. So thank you for hanging out with us. Definitely tell your friends, family, coworkers, and colleagues that when it comes to fantasy football, look no further than the Fantasy Football Power Hour every Wednesday on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. You can listen and watch us every Wednesday in the Fantasy Football Power Hour, proudly presented by the Wildcat Sports Pub, as well as listen and watch in general on Facebook.com/LiveNowDT, YouTube.com/WakeUpCallDT, MixLR.com/WakeUpCallDT, and on WakeUpCallDT.com's homepage. You can listen and watch there Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern Time. And, of course, after the shows go live, you can watch them and listen to them in all these wonderful venues on Stitcher, Spotify, MixLR, TuneIn, iTunes, and YouTube, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Podbean, and more by searching Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora or Wake Up Call DT, all one word. And a proud thanks to all of our partners, Cafe Kubal, Carvel DeWitt, the Wildcat Sports Pub, which we did every Wednesday, and today, the Fantasy Football Power Hour, and we thank you so very much. Honda City of Liverpool, Chick-fil-A Cicero, Avicoli's Canine Camp Dog Daycare, Pizza Man, Canine Campground Dog Boarding, as well as the Millhouse Market, and Ma and Pa's Kettle Corn and Popcorn Factory, where you can go to maandpazpopcorn.com, and whether it's for in-store pickup as well as delivery to any one of the 50 states, whether you're in the community of Central New York or outside of the community, you can go to maandpazpopcorn.com and use the promo code DT20 for 20% off using my personal code, which stands for Dan Tortora 20. So DT20, DT20 at maandpazpopcorn.com. Do that today and get 20% off. Again, shout out to all of our great partners in the community. A shout out to all of our beautiful and wonderful listeners, viewers, supporters all over the world, and of course in Central and Upstate New York. Make sure you tell your family, friends, coworkers, and colleagues about Wake Up Call, and we're always here for you. Tomorrow we will be on site, on location, live for the first time ever at the Cafe Kubal location in Manlius on 343 Fayette Street. in Manlius, New York, with my guy Rob Drummond, talking about the draft as well as local talent, what he's doing to help the community, and so much more coming up tomorrow live from Cafe Kubal in Manlius. So we'll take the Cafe Kubal studios to Cafe Kubal. We'll see you there. And in the meantime, God bless, no stress, do your best. I'll talk with you all soon. Be well and be safe.